Hello, everyone, and welcome to our coverage of Australian Survivor Brains V Brawn II. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here for another deep dive. We are going to talk about back to the Brains camp, and we're going to talk about the jury. We have a lot of stuff to talk about with this fan favorite. It is Logan. Logan, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me again. It's good to be back.
Yeah, I know. We did the X interview. That was like a teaser for these longer deep dives. How have you been in the week or so since the season ended?
Yeah, honestly, it's been great. It's kind of been nice to be out of it now and kind of watching more so as a fan. I mean, I guess I knew what was happening, being on the jury and stuff, but it is nice to see the conversations that you didn't get to see and even the challenges you didn't get to see. So that's been really fun, and I've got to catch up with everyone from not everyone, but most of them from the show, watching the finale, which was such a fun night. So it's been really great. I've been loving it.
Yeah, well, I want to get into your whole Survivor journey because we did see on Twitter old tweets were brought up from when you were in high school watching Survivor. So you're a fan, you know what Rox is, and I'd love to hear about like your fandom journey with the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've chatted about it a few times, but I've watched this show since I was about 7 years old. So I think like my earliest memories of childhood involve Survivor. So I'd be sitting on the couch with my dad at night, and my mum would say, "Oh, you have to go to bed at tribal council," and I'd be in the hallway like creeping, and my dad would see me, and he's like, "Shh." So I've grown up loving this show. So I've watched it for a really long time. Very well equipped with the rules, so very aware of what Rox is. But in saying that, in Australia, it hasn't really happened, so there has to be some grace to people that don't know what it is because it's not something that happens commonly at all.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just like mine now. That's like my term. It's like that's how my fandom line is just like rocks or not rocks. So to be fair, it's a higher bar in Australian Survivor for sure, but also one that many players probably don't clear. So it's great that you do know it. So what was your kind of journey of, being a fan into applying for the show and getting on the show?
Yeah, so I had applied, I think the earliest one I did was back in 2017. I was about 21 years old. So it's a little baby girl. And I got quite far in the process and kind of got the call towards the end and said it wasn't going to be my year, which was totally fine. And then I got a call the following year, sort of checking like pulse check and seeing if I was still interested. But I didn't really give much back to production that year because I was pregnant with my first daughter, Lola. So kind of wanted to let them know I was still interested, but probably not this year. And then I think I waited a little while after that. And I think I chatted to them about the blood versus water season, which I didn't know was going to be blood versus water. And they kept asking a lot of questions about my husband. And I was like, "You've never really asked about Jason this much. What's going on?" And I kind of put two and two together. And I was like, oh, "Okay, well, he can't come on. So that's probably a no from me this season." And then it's been a little while since that season, so it's I've taken some time away. I had another baby, I had a wedding, so just taking time to do stuff for myself. And then last year at the start of the year, I just had this really strange feeling. I was like, if I apply this year, I'm pretty sure I'm getting on. So I applied and I called my best friend straight away. I was like, I'm getting on Survivor this year, and she's like, oh my gosh, have you got the call? And I was like, no, I just know there's something strange going on in the universe that I know that it's kind of like there's no roadblocks this time, and I know who I am, and I know how to sell myself now, and I've done a lot of time with my marketing degree, so I'm pretty good at selling myself. So I felt pretty confident going into the application this year that, or last year, sorry, that if I did apply that I was going to get on, and I felt really comfortable knowing who I was and what my character was, or um, whatever that is. But yeah, I felt really confident going in, and as soon as I kind of got through to the next stage, it just got more and more exciting. And as a fan, going through that process, it was exhilarating. Every time I got an email that said Survivor on it, I was like, oh my gosh! So it was the most amazing opportunity that ever came up, and I'm so glad that I allowed myself to look at my life and say, hey, it's time for me to do something that I've always wanted to do. So glad I did it, and I had the best experience.
Yeah, it is interesting that every year, pretty much, most years, they were like, you or Shawnee. Like every year that Shawnee wasn't on, you got the call. So this was a good opportunity. Although I do think that you fill different niches, but I think like in their mind, they probably feel like a similar thing. And yeah, I mean, after you kind of got the call and were going through it, was there anything that you were doing prep wise that to like prepare to go on the show?
Yeah. So I mean the Shawnee comparison on its own is a funny one. I think what I want to say on that is when production is sort of looking to cast people, they are not saying that you're a similar person. It's sort of more of a similar archetype. You
Yeah.
can't really have two people on the same tribe that are the same. So it's not necessarily personality. It's more so blonde hair, green eyes, works in marketing, athlete husband. That's the kind of similarities, and that's kind of where it ends, I would say. So yeah, every sort of season that Shani was on, I was not on or not getting a call up, um, which is fine. I had the greatest experience on this time, and I'm glad that this was my time to go. But in terms of prep, I my prep was a bit funny. I kind of went in more so with less of a physical prep. I actually gained a bit of weight going out there, and it was something I was really super conscious of. I was self conscious of because obviously you're going to be on TV. You don't know how long you're going to be out there. You don't know if you're going to drop weight. You're going to whatever. So I really wanted to lose a bunch of weight before I went out there just because I'm a girl and being in a bikini and all that kind of stuff. And I had a few people that were like, Logan, that would be really, really silly for you to do. I think the best thing for you to do is actually gain weight because when you're out there on 2 or 3 cups of rice, if that a day, some days you go without eating at all, you are going to drop weight so quickly and it's not going to be healthy for you to go out there at your lowest weight. I ate poorly. I ate really badly before I went out. I didn't detox from anything. I didn't stop drinking wine. I didn't stop drinking caffeine. I'm not a coffee drinker anyway. I've got ADHD, so it actually gives me migraines, and I would bounce off the walls if I had coffee. But luckily, I was able to take my ADHD medication out there, so it kind of got me a little bit of a overhand on people because I would take my medication in the morning and it kind of perks you up a little bit and you don't feel that hungry. So I was like, I don't need to
Mhm.
eat and I'm awake. And everyone's like, oh. So it was helpful there. In terms of like the physical prep, I did a lot of Pilates, which I talked about before. I love Pilates. I think it's so great for your entire core and your body. And it's something that is really, really helpful in those later stage challenges to have that core balance and the strength and all that kind of stuff. And I think we saw that I did pretty well in a lot of challenges. And I would, yeah, really put that to Pilates. So thank you, Pilates. Love that for me. Um, and I did a lot of fire making when I was at home. So I actually have a video. My dad, he's the biggest Survivor fan in the world, and he set up like a whole station for me and rigged it up with like the twine and the little flag that goes up when your fire burns through and all that kind of stuff. So I practiced a lot with the coconut husks and the flint and yeah, getting fires going. So luckily I never had to make one. I made some like out on the actual beach when we were cooking and for our tribe and stuff like that. And there's a really fun moment where Kaylin, Kayn, and I actually make fire from nothing, which was the coolest moment in Survivor for me. That was so fun. But yeah, I practiced a lot of fire as well.
What was the perspective of Jason? I mean, you're leaving with, do you have two kids?
Yes, too.
Yeah. And he's what, in season at the time, or where we like that was probably a lot. What was like like his perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously he's known how much I've loved the game, and he'd never really watched Survivor when we first started dating, which was when I was about 19 or 20. So I really got him into Survivor, and he sort of saw my journey, chatting to production over across a number of years, and he really really wanted it for me. Like I've said it before, but I kind of gave up my 20s in a way, my early 20s, the years that you're out partying and clubbing and doing all that fun stuff, because I was at home with babies. And that was something that we decided on as a family to do together. But in saying that, it was really hard to sit at home and see all my friends out and doing all these things that I was like, oh my gosh, why can't I do that? Oh, wait, I've got children to feed and look after and stuff like that. So I think Jason was really excited for me to have something to do for myself. I mean, I've been doing uni as well for the past few years and trying to get that sorted and get my career sort of in line. But it was just something that I really wanted to do, um, to make myself happy, my soul happy, and feel like I was giving back to myself. And Jason was so supportive of that. But it was really difficult. It was, I think, July when we left, or end of June when we left, which is middle of the season for them. Unfortunately, Jason was injured at the time, but I was getting
Yeah.
pretty nervous because Jason, when he was injured, he was 4 games away from 200 games, and I really, really did not want to miss that. But unfortunately, I mean, luckily for me, but unfortunately for Jason, his injury took a little bit longer to heal. So I don't think he played his first game back until I think it was a couple of days after I got booted out. So when I was in the jury, he played his first game back for VFL. But he had some support. He had his mum fly down from Perth and my sister come and stay at our house and sort of take turns with the kids. So he was amazing through the whole experience. And I know that even though it's tough on him, he didn't want me to come home. He knew the longer I was out there, the better. So he was just really, really excited for me, which is amazing to have that support in a husband.
Were there a lot of other mothers on this season? Like Ursula had kids. Did anyone else?
Yeah, not
Any of the other women?
really.
Yeah.
There was only two mums, so it was me and Ursula and Zara was the other mum.
Oh, Zara. Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple of dads out there, but I think they were mostly on the Brawn tribe because we realized that most of the people on the Brains tribe were single without families, and most of the people on the Brawn were family people. So it was really interesting that dynamic, and I think that's why Zara and I clicked really well early on, just our being mums out there and struggling with that. And there's a sort of a little piece that you don't see when we get told that the other team got their letters. Zara and I just bawl our eyes out on the mat because we were both obviously really, really missing our kids and our husbands. And I think the rest of our tribe, they don't really care that much because they're like, oh, we don't have that sort of significant other or our kids at home or anything like that. So they didn't really mind about the letters. But Zara and I we were just bawling our eyes out. And I think they've cut it from the show because we probably just looked too sad.
Yeah, I mean, we see that in the final challenge, obviously, when the loved ones come out. Not that, I mean, Kaylin's mom and Mars and AJ had like their friends there, and I'm not like not to diminish it. It just was kind of like they were like Kaylin was a little emotional, but it was like these like
Yeah.
young guys with their like just their friends there, and I think we kind of see that. I'd love to talk about the dynamics getting to the Brains tribe when you get on the beach because like the way I've heard it was like definitely maybe not like the parent status, but definitely like age was a big thing kind of uniting people early and how people were kind of connecting. So how did you see the initial relationships that you had and the dynamics on like the very early Brains Beach?
Yeah. So yeah, Brains was interesting like that. So I think initially going out, I had an instant connection with Laura. We were similar age, had a lot of similar interests. And yeah, we just clicked like that. And I think the next person that I got on really, really well with Karen, which I was a bit shocked about because I saw Karen as someone who was a bit standoffish, and I thought that she was kind of a bit mysterious and a bit hard to read, and I didn't know if we were going to get along. But then when I first met her, she started talking. I was like, "Oh my god, I love her! I love her! I love her so much." And then obviously I chatted to Zara a bit about like being parents and stuff like that, and that's sort of when the coven starts to form. But I think we did have. I never saw like this whole like sort of age gap kind of situation. I guess because I was in more of the majority with the age. So I didn't really see it as something that was prevalent. But I guess if you are outside of that and you're in the minority, it becomes quite glaringly obvious. So I think yeah, Kent and Indy were on the older end. Rich was a little bit older, but Rich got along really really well with the boys as well. So it kind of was a little bit of an age thing and then a gender thing. It was a bit of a strange split, but I thought that a lot of us just really got along well. And it was just a young tribe, and I think even the people that were a bit older, they were kind of young at heart as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we've spoken about, like I with well, my former team, we've spoken about this. I just feel like I was on the season. Like when I put myself into the season, being at Brains Camp, but definitely at Brains Camp, I was. I've done so many Brains deep dives, and I feel like I can see some more around me. So the way that
Yeah.
people have described it is that there was like this coven thing, and that was kind of a little bit defensive, like an insulation, and then you had relationships with obviously Laura, Rich, Max, which others have kind of described as like the top of the table there, that the top of the hierarchy. Is that how you saw the dynamics for
Yeah,
yourself in your alliances?
not at all. That's a strange thing. I think the graduates was also formed on this sort of defensive area, which is really
Yeah.
strange for me because I didn't see sort of the relationships that I was building at the time with Rich and Max, and Laura, obviously. I didn't see that to be like a really scary thing for people. I thought it was just sort of a friendship that I was building and trying to keep some boys in my pocket to sort of help balance out the dynamics with the coven. And I wanted to make sure that I had the information from the boys. And Max was someone that I gravitated to really, really strongly because growing up, or not growing up, but like being a part of the AFL world for the past 9 or so years, you get really close to a lot of the football boys, and Max really, really reminded me a lot of them. And I spent a lot of time with these boys. I had to do the COVID hubs with them, so become super close. And Max really gave me, like, reminded me a lot of those kind of boys, and so our relationship formed quite well from that. But it was kind of just a friendship. I don't think it was until probably week 2 that we even started talking strategy and making plans, and that's kind of when I flipped from the Coven to hopefully do something with Max and Laura, and I wanted to bring in Kaylin and Karen. But it's obviously I was out of the know there because that was never going to happen. So I don't know why it was seen as a bit scary for us all being friends. It was not really a strategy, and we weren't really strat chatting at the time. But I guess if you're not a part of it, it can seem scary. So
Yeah, it's interesting because everyone's perspective is very, very different. And as you said, like the graduates form counter to a plan that you're saying is not your strategic priority, but to them
yeah,
that felt very real, and then it emerges out of that. And when I speak to Laura, she might say like it was real to her. I think that that's what's interesting about doing the deep dive. Like everyone has these like nuanced perceptions, and the way they all interact with each other has so many interesting permutations. So was your strategic focus the Coven? Was that like where you saw your like true alliance being was the Coven?
Initially, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, with what you say, this is all perception. So, I mean, there's 24 perspectives of the game, and the truth lies somewhere in the middle of this. And I think that's what any listeners, I'd beg you to understand, is that anytime we go into these deep dives and we chat about it, this is our own perspective, this is our own truth. So there's no right or wrong in what we're saying, but it's more so just how we saw the game and how we were feeling about it. But initially, I really did want to go Coven strong. I think the hard thing was that there was 4 women who were all really strong leaders, and we all had our really strong opinions, and that was becoming difficult. I think the relationships that we were building outside the Coven were what was tearing the Coven apart in a way. So we all wanted to make sure, and we all encouraged each other to build those connections outside so that we could be safe. So it was just creating that spider web of connection. But then when we did that, sort of if the other girls wanted to go for someone who was our connection, then we're like, hang on, can we pick someone that's not our connection so that we're all still on even footing, and feel secure? And I think it really started to break up when Laura and Zara were butting heads a lot, with the Rich vote. And I think the difficult thing is the girls had pitched Rich a couple of times, and it could have been Rich, and we just sort of changed it. It was initially meant to be Miles, which is the craziest thing in the world. Miles was meant to be the first vote. And then that obviously switched to Indy when she kind of outed the Coven, and we had to be quite defensive about it. And then the next vote was always going to be Kent. It was always going to be Kent. And the girls had obviously pitched Rich, but I think Kent was ruffling a few feathers back at camp, and everyone was pretty happy to see the back end of him, at that time. But in saying that, coming from, like, say, Zara's perspective or Karen's perspective, because they had said Rich's name a couple of times, it could look like we weren't going ahead with the plan or being stubborn. But I guess to me personally, it looked like, oh, yeah, there was names floated, and we all just kind of went with the best option. But I think we really, really started to butt heads when Rich was the actual vote, and Laura really didn't want that. It was unfortunate for me because I really wanted to go ahead with the Coven. And I was happy to sort of lay down and be like, yep, you know what? That's your vote. It's not the best thing for me, but right now we're at like 22 people or whatever it is. And we need to stay strong in an alliance right now rather than just pushing our individual vote. We can always make new friendships and new alliances with different people, so that I didn't see the point of holding on to Rich so strongly at that point. And I sort of had to work as an intermediary between Laura and Zara and Karen and try and calm everyone down. I was like, okay, she's just a bit upset about it. Like, she'll get over it. It's fine. We're all allowed to have our emotions about, our games and how we want to play. But I think when you have Laura, who is a super emotional person and really in touch with her emotions, and then you have Zara, who can come across quite blunt when they're fighting. Oh, that wasn't fun. That was not fun to be in the middle of. And Karen and I were like, this is not fun. So that was quite difficult, and I really did want to move along with the Coven, but it started to fracture there, and which is why I moved on to working on Max. And yeah, the Max plan was sort of to move ahead with, I think, myself, Laura, Ali, Max, Karen, and Kaylin. We wanted to pull into that, because Max
Yeah.
and Kaylin really, really strong relationship, which I don't think is shown very much, but they had a really, really good relationship. And especially with Rich, those three were really, really strong together.
Yeah, so a few things. So what did you consider the original Coven? Because we see Ali kind of montaged into it. Indy, the whole discussion with Indy is like whether she's actually in the Coven to be blowing it up, or whether she should have just been kind of grateful for her spot in the Coven, or she wasn't in it. So where did you see it from, like, kind of the four of you to Ali and Indy, of what the makeup of the original Coven was?
Yeah, so I'm gonna hit the nail on the head here. The Coven is myself, Laura, Zara, and Karen. That's all the Coven was. It's all it ever will be. It was the four of us strong. We did have honorary guests that we brought in and gave a bit of information to. They never really had the full information, and they weren't someone in our complete circle of trust. But we did bring Ali in probably the most. But we could even see that Ali wasn't 100% on board, so she didn't get 100% of the information. She was an honorary Coven member. We love her. We love Ali. But yeah, she wasn't a full Coven member. And Indy was never in the Coven. Indy, we wanted to protect Indy as a Coven. We were really, really against a woman going home first, just on the basis of her being a woman. So we really wanted to protect her. So that when Indy blew that all up, we were so confused because we're like, babes, you weren't the plan. You've just made yourself the plan. That's just infuriating. But yeah, unfortunately, Indy and Ali never a part of the Coven fully. The Coven is the four strong girls.
Yeah, so moving past that indie vote into the Kent vote, we also do see this is where AJ is going to target you, and you're going to get wind of it, and you're going to want AJ to go. So the kind of names we had heard was obviously Rich being pitched. Kent, as you said, was like kind of always like the easy vote. And then you were looking at AJ. So what was that experience like, where you are told by Ali, I think it was, that AJ was coming for you and like wanting to flip it? And this was a very funny tribal council, because I feel like you were being so passive aggressive at tribal council, to the point where AJ's like, I know that I have screwed something up here.
I know. Oh my gosh, my blood was boiling at travel council, and I was like, keep your face straight, Logan. And I was like, subtle jabs back and forth. That was hilarious. It's one of the funnier moments out there. Yeah, so when you first hear your name out there, I can't explain the feeling. It is like your stomach has dropped. Like, it is the most horrendous feeling to be like, okay, I feel like I've made all these connections. I'm feeling pretty safe. We're kind of in control of the vote here. And then to hear your ally come up to you and say, hey, your name's out there, it is sickening. Like, it is the most awful feeling, especially really, really early on. I feel like the biggest compliment you can get is to be voted out so late, because you're, I guess, a threat in the game, and you're getting voted out because they don't want to go up against you, or they think they can't, or they just think that you're too much of a threat. So that's really complimentary. But when you hear your name really early on, it's a stab in the guts. Like, it is not nice at all. But the one thing about that vote, which is really interesting, I think obviously for production wise, they keep up sort of, oh, like, Logan's name's been out there, Logan now wants AJ. That was never really the case. I did want AJ, of course. I was like, you're gonna come burn me? That's not happening. We're gonna fix this. But I spoke to pretty much everyone out there, and I think they only show Ali telling me, but Max came up and told me, and Karen and Zara, I asked them both, and they both confirmed, yeah, AJ has pitched you to us. I asked Miles and Kaylin. Kaylin ran away from me at that point. This is how I know when Kaylin's lying, because I asked Kaylin flat out. I was like, "Hey, have you heard my name from AJ?" And he was like, and then just runs into the ocean. I was like, "Okay, I'll take that as a yes." I don't know. But everyone had asked me on that vote, "Do you want to flip the vote to AJ?" And I said no, which, I mean, I should have, looking how far he got. But um, I was being a team player at that point. Same thing with the Coven, with the rich votes and all that kind of stuff. I was trying to make sure that we stayed strong as an alliance, and that we weren't voting on emotion, and that, yeah, we were really strong together. So when they asked me, do you want to flip it to AJ? I said no, because it wasn't about me. Yes, you can put out anyone's name. That's fine. But if I try and get my alliance to then target AJ, it's going to look like I'm just reacting on emotion. There's no logic behind it. It's just, oh, you've said my name, so I'm going to get you out of here. And it's not a fun way to play Survivor. It's kind of just a reactive way, and I don't like that. So, yeah, hearing my name was not fun. But I think I handled it pretty well. The fact that we could have flipped the votes onto AJ, and I said, no, let's just pull this together, keep the plan strong. If we go and flip on AJ, what kind of turmoil does that cause when we get back to camp? If everyone is in on this Kent vote and we come back, we've flipped the votes, we're going to look like this main power alliance, and that's not going to be great for our game. So we had to be really level headed and calm. And I think I did that really well in that point. I mean, there's definitely points where I go off and I'm not as calm as I want to be, but being an ADHD girly, impulse control is not my strong suit. Um, but that vote itself, I think I handled that pretty well. But yeah, so AJ didn't go home. Probably something I should have done, but oh well.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can't know that AJ and Miles are going to like be, running rampant through the season. But what had been your relationship with AJ and Miles? I mean, obviously it seems kind of negative, I guess, if AJ is coming for you, but like what was your general relationship with either of them early on?
Yeah, look, I think my relationship with pretty much everyone on the Brains tribe initially was really great. I feel like we were a lot of us were just good friends. I know that's a strange thing to say about like when you're playing Survivor, but the reality is those first 4 nights we all got about an hour's sleep, so those days were really really long. And what do you do other than talk? So we're up by the fire all hours. I think we were looking at the sky and we're like, it's got to be 3 a.m, and then we realized it was like 10 p.m, and it was just like the night was going on forever. So the first 4 days we really really made some strong friendships. I mean, AJ and I talked heaps, Miles and I talked a bit. Miles was kind of digging his own grave, so I was kind of distancing myself from Miles at that stage because yeah, Miles would be up all night chatting around the fire, just talking about reeling off statistics about other seasons and what should happen here and blah blah blah. And we're all just looking at each other and we're like, Miles, what are you doing? Because I think Laura was really working on a connection with Miles, and I was like, Laura, we can't be involved in this. He's literally digging his own grave right now. And we're like, you know what? Just let him dig his own grave. So I wasn't super, super close with Miles at this stage. We chatted a bit, but AJ was getting along really well with friendship wise, but I was just not super interested in working with AJ at that point.
So getting into this next vote, which is going to turn into the non-elim, but we know that the women were going for Rich, and you had been happy to part with Rich despite the relationship you'd had even beforehand, and we kind of have that little comedy of errors where you think you hear that the target and you hear it's going to be Rich, but actually it was you that AJ was putting that out there. So you'd been kind of willing to part with Rich, and this was very hard for Laura. So again, a difficult thing for you to manage. But what was your perspective going into this vote before the vote is cancelled?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of happy. I was fine with it. I mean, it got the Coven back together, it got everyone working together. And Rich, he's a great guy. I absolutely adore Rich. And I think it is sort of sad how people do get seen on reality TV. Sometimes there's just one part of their personality that is showcased, and you don't get to see all the beautiful layers of that person underneath. And Rich is genuinely a really lovely person. But he is hard to live with. He's hard to live with. He's another ADHD bro. So a lot of us, I feel like we were like the neurospicy tribe. It was so funny. We'd look around and we're like, oh, we're all on the spectrum, right? So it was really funny, like, and hard to manage though, because when you do have ADHD, you can be loud and overwhelming. And if there's people that are autistic or whatever, you can overstimulate them really, really easily. So Rich was someone who got on people's nerves really, really quickly. But I think I was okay with him because understanding how his brain works, I was accepting of him because I just understood him, I think. And I thought he was a great person. So, I mean, I wasn't sad that he had to go home in that sense because it brought the girls back together. I knew it would make the tribe happier. Um, and also, he did do my head in sometimes. I love him so much. But yeah, when you are overstimulated and you have someone sort of breathing in your ear when you're waiting hours to do the next sort of thing, it's a lot. And I think Rich was someone who was really loud at night as well, like by the fire when people trying to sleep. So people just get on your nerves. That's the thing when you're out there. It's a human game. It's there's so much human element that is not shown on TV that people are like, oh, you're on a game, you just have to get over it. And it's like, okay, babes, you go out there for 24 hours a day with someone snoring like a freight train when you've got no sleep and you're like deprived and you're hungry and you've got miles below your feet, like literally like a freight train. You're like, you want to kick him in the face because your foot's right there and you're like, I could just shut him up real quickly. So it's hard. There's just a huge human element to the game that I think people don't really realize.
So how are you managing Laura in that? Because I feel like Laura was going to vote out Rich, so I feel like she chose you being like her conduit to the Coven between kind of these two, priorities for her. So what was it like to manage her through that?
Yeah, look, that was really difficult. That was a really hard stage with me and Law because I could understand where she was coming from. We talked a lot about having sort of our second outside the coven, or having our person outside the coven, and I think Zara and Karen were really working on that sort of AJ and Kaylin situation. I think Karen was, yeah, really invested in Kaylin. They were like a brother and sister out there, and Zara had that sort of bond with AJ. Laura was kind of working on Miles, but mostly had Rich from the beginning. From day one, she had Rich, and I was really working on Max. So losing her person outside of the coven was really hard for Laura to, I guess, come to terms with and feel safe with. Um, so that was kind of me having to talk her off a ledge there and saying, Laura, there's plenty of other people here. You can have another second. I know you've put in the hard yards for a week or so with Rich, but we've got to look at the fact that he is grading people and he's grading our alliance, and we have to look at the less of two evils here, like going voting him out or keeping him in. Like, both are not good options for you. We just have to look at what's better for both of us going further into the game. We really don't want to piss off a majority alliance. So it was hard to manage Laura, but I think Laura and I were looked at as sort of this really powerful duo throughout the whole time because of how well we engaged emotionally. I was someone that, um, if Laura was having a bad time, or if I was having a bad time, we were that person that we would go to each other and instantly calm each other down. We just had this really strange connection that it was like an immediate bestie sister kind of vibe. And I understood exactly what she was saying. She understood exactly what I was saying. So if any times we were both heightened or whatever, we would both be able to calm each other down. And it was a really special relationship which we had with each other. So I think it was a bit scary to other people as well because there was not a lot of people that had that really ride or die, that was like that really intimate ride or die. Like, we knew each other's thoughts, feelings, and could calm each other down straight away. And it was a lot. But I'm glad I have her.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, having a second, each of you having a second does make it hard to then compromise on numbers when it feels like this is my like other number. And I do think that it's interesting because the proxy war is such a big theme throughout the entire season, and it starts early on there with kind of the divisions in the coven as well. What numbers did you think you had on Rich? Because in a world where it's the guys versus the girls, it's 5-5. We know that Miles was coming over, he was bringing AJ over, but what did you think the majority vote was going to be on Rich at that vote?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, this was 8 months ago, and talking about the early votes kind of like makes my mind a bit numb. But I'm pretty sure it was a consensus. Except, actually, no, because Rich was after Ken. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a consensus on
No,
Rich.
this
I
was
think
this
the
was the next one. Yeah,
oh,
Rich
which one?
was after Ali
Oh,
at
that.
the
Hang on.
5-5 into the non-elim.
The non-elim. Yeah, no, the non-elim. I'm pretty sure was a consensus.
Okay.
From my knowledge, it was a consensus. I think the only person who was really against it was Kaylin. And Max obviously didn't want to go with Rich, but they also knew that that's where the numbers were going. So I think that they wanted to go elsewhere. I'm not sure who. Actually, no, it could have
Ali
been
would have been
Ali.
the target, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
go with Ali at that time. Um, but I'm pretty sure we had all the numbers for Rich. I didn't really like, this is the thing. I was really speaking to the Coven at that time, and I was speaking to Max, and I was speaking to Rich. I wasn't really in AJ and Miles's ear. So whatever their plans were kind of got relayed through multiple people to me. So if they had these other grand plans, which they tend to do on this show, I didn't hear of them that early. So I have no idea what they were thinking. As far as I knew, it was a consensus on Rich.
And then when the non-elim was announced, sending Rich over, what was your perspective in that? We thought Ali kind of wanted to go, but you didn't want to give up a covered majority. AJ, no one wanted to send. Was it just like so easy at that point to send Rich over, keep him as a number, but also not have him, annoying you and everyone else?
Yeah, that was kind of like a perfect scenario for Laura and I, because we could look like Rich was still in the game. And when we did get to meet up again, we could be like, we fought hard for you. Like, we tried our best. We weren't going to vote you out. We could have twisted and manipulated any way we would have liked, because who's he going to trust? All the people that were trying to vote him out. Oh, we weren't trying to do that. We were trying to save your ass, and we were trying to do this thing, and blah, blah, blah. So having Rich stay was probably the best case scenario for Laura and I at this time, because the Coven remained intact. We did what they wanted to do, but it also kept him in the game for us to work with at a future point. And also maybe dig into the bronze a little bit and see if there is any sort of connections there that when we did make it to tribe swap, we could work with. So it was really helpful, but I think the thing that really, really screwed it up was that Rich just didn't believe that we fought hard for him, which was a bit disappointing, because we really did. We put our necks on the line, Laura mostly, but we fought hard to keep Rich out of their mouths, and it just didn't work out well in the end. Um, but yeah, that's just the thing with Survivor, I guess.
Yeah, we see when Rich votes you out, he doesn't vote you out, he goes home, but when he votes for you, he's like, it's a revenge play on Laura, and I was like, damn, Laura like fought
Laura's
too hard.
kept
Honestly, I
it
thought, yeah, like
Laura,
Laura did what she could.
yeah, Laura fought so hard for Rich. So I said some swear words at that point in tribal when I heard him say that. And I'm glad they didn't show them, because it would have been very unbecoming of me, because I was mad. I was mad as hell. I was like, Rich, the only person that really stuck their neck out for you was Laura. So why are you going off at Laura? She has had your back this whole time. But it just shows how well people are able to manipulate. I can't remember who it was that told Rich. I think it was AJ. Yeah, AJ. Goddamn AJ. Who told Rich that we were going for him, and it was mainly, I think he told it was like Laura and Logan were going for you, and that really threw Rich through a spin. I think as well, being a boy's boy, like he he trusted the word of the guys a lot, and we had to prove a little bit extra hard that he could trust our word as well. So as soon as a guy comes up to him and goes, "Oh, yeah, this is the plan," but then you've also got Indy, who's come in a few days before and said, "Oh, the girls are wanting you out." So there's always that in the back of your mind thinking, oh, the girls want me out. So then it was reinforced by AJ. And yeah, really, really screwed with us a bit, because we did try very hard for Rich, unfortunately.
So you say that, like, sending Rich out is good because they can keep the Coven together, but the Coven is immediately going to fall apart here, where the graduates, unbeknownst to you, are going to form counter to something you have. But we do see these plans where you have that relationship with Max. Max is going to have the advantage. There's like talk of kind of going with Ali, but then you also have Ali there, and I feel like Miles becomes a target for you guys. So what did you kind of see about your priorities here and going into this vote? What you wanted to happen and what your dynamics were?
Yeah, so going into this vote, we were looking at having Laura, myself, Max, Kaylin, Karen, and Ali be the majority in the tribe. And we were looking at targeting Miles. I don't think, actually, no, Max was looking at targeting Miles. I wasn't looking at targeting Miles. I was looking at targeting AJ at this point, because I was like, okay, enough time has gone past. It's time that I get the guy out who keeps saying my name. Um, and I tried to relay this to Max so many times. I think there's like a scene of us sitting in the shelter, and I'm like, don't do something stupid. Like, I know you have this great advantage and you can use it. It can be fun. You can have the drama that you like. It's all good. We can do that. But we need to think about the logistics of the game going forward, who's going to be with us. I have just gone out on a limb here, and I've kind of separated myself from two of the Coven girls, and I'm going all in with you. So if you do this immediately, you are going to burn me so bad, and we're going to be straight on the bottom if you mess this up. And unfortunately, he messed it up. So it really solidified the graduates when Max messed up that vote. Realistically, he should have sent two of the boys home. He should have sent Kaylin and someone else home, and kept. Oh, actually, he should have sent Kaylin and Zara home, because he knew that Zara was not with him, and Kaylin didn't want to vote out anyone really a lot of the time. So he really should have sent those two home, and we would have had the majority to send out Miles. Unfortunately, Max did Max, and it didn't work out that well for us. So it flipped us right to the bottom. And I remember coming back that night and talking to Max, and I'm like, oh, what did you just do? Like, we are now firmly on the bottom. We know that they're forming something. We can see it. Karen has come back from camp with Laura, and been chatting to her about this soft six or something that was forming. And we're not a part of that. And how many numbers left on this tribe? There's like 9 of us or 8 of us. And who's on the bottom now? It's us because you messed that up. Max. Goddamn.
So wait, who was the soft six that Karen was talking about?
Soft six or soft five, I can't remember. So it was the graduates that were forming. So it
Okay, the
was it
five
was
then.
yeah. So it was a soft five, and I think they were bringing in Ali. I want to say Ali or Laura
Well,
potentially.
Ali was gone. Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember. All these
I mean,
all these ones get. I think it was a soft five they were talking about. I think
yeah.
Karen had come to Laura when they got sent home, and explained a soft five. I think it was at that time. The numbers get quite confusing. And she didn't go into much detail with Laura, but Laura came back straight to me and told me there's a five forming and we're not a part of it. And I was like, Max, you screwed it.
So you had hoped to have yourself, Laura, Max, Ali, Karen, and Kaylin. You'd hoped to have that 6 of 9 before Ali went home.
Yeah, that was the plan. And I think the reason Max sent Kyron home as well, which is what he's told us sort of after having chats with him, is that he wanted Laura to bring Kyron over to our side. So he went and sent them home to have a chat and get themselves alone and talk about it. And I was like, that's great. They can talk about it any other time, not when we need their votes. I was like, oh my goodness, Max. But then again, I don't know what Kyron would have done. I think she probably would have voted against the Coven anyway at that point. So not 100% sure what would have gone down even if he had have picked other people to go.
Yeah, no, sending Karen home was good. I mean, you got at the point where he thinks he has both of them. I think it's a little, maybe little bit of hubris to be like, I'm going to send home 2 people from my own side to have a chat now instead of voting with me. Like they could chat at any other time, Max. But I think
Yeah,
Karen was the one that we know was the right one to send home. It was losing Laura's number, and he I think was maybe
yeah,
worried that Laura would protect Miles, and he wanted Miles out, and he wanted to be this like swing vote, and the whole dynamics were kind of different to what he thought as well. So I think that becomes like a tricky part of that. But where was like Kaylin in this? Because this is going to be one of the first of many, many times that Kaylin is going to be like an assumed number for so many people, yourself included, who then, isn't with you. He, to be fair, is voting out Ali, which, maybe for Max, like that's what Max is necessarily expecting. So he kind of sees this like gender divide still, when everyone else is
yeah.
kind of falling in some sort of other graduate, non-graduate line. But yeah, what was like the relationship with Kaylin at this point that everyone kind of thought they had him in their pocket?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you don't see is that we were all genuinely super close to Kaylin, myself especially. I mean, I was out there 39 days and I spent 38 of them with Kaylin. So my relationship with Kaylin is not shown at all. We were super, super close. Like, I know so many things about Kaylin that I should not know. There is so much I know about that man. Because we were super close, we did chat a lot. I think the early days of Brains, we didn't chat a heap. It was sort of more when we got towards the switch and Max trying to bring in Kaylin. There are conversations that we're having that wants to be on board with us, but then he's also having the same conversations with AJ and Miles. And he's really at a pivotal point of choosing who he is aligning with at that stage. But yeah, you don't see a lot of it. But Kaylin was in most conversations, and then he'd be in them for 2 minutes, and then he's like, I'm gonna head out to the ocean, guys. I'm gonna dip off. So he just had a lot of confidence that the people that were left in those conversations were going to tell him. And I'm not sure that was a greater strategy because we do see towards the end that I think a lot of us wanted him to have a bit more agency over his game. We wanted him to be able to say, yes, this is the move I made. It wasn't, I was waiting for someone to tell me and I was confident in them telling me and all that kind of stuff. It was like, no, what did you actually do? When did you say, this is my plan? This is what I wanted to do? And I think that's what we were sort of lacking a little bit there. But Kalen he was everywhere and he was nowhere at the same time. He's a really hard one to sort of pin down because you just didn't know. There's a lot of times that he did actually vote with me and against AJ and Miles. So you really did not know where he stood, and he would prove his loyalty in one vote and then he'd switch at the next. So he was a hard one to figure out if you actually had him or not.
Yeah, I think I'm more confused than ever about Max's plan because, like, while there is this like new graduates non-graduates divide, and the numbers can be kind of debated on it between where people saw numbers like a Karen and a Kaylin, which means that like okay, then Max thinks he has a 6, he's sending home 2 from his own 6, which still leaves it as a 4-3, which is like dicey, but I guess. But then like the way Max is thinking about it is he still has the gender thing, so it's like he thinks Zara's on Miles, even though they're
Yeah,
like both left out of this new group you're forming, and he thinks Kaylin's on Ali, even though Kaylin, it was meant to be this kind of like new group, and he thinks he's going to be the swing vote. And then like I think he sees it as like a full gender thing between Ali and Miles. And that's so
Yeah.
different. And then that's going to then play out in the fact that then Zara comes back and tells you that she just like screwed up by voting out Ali, but Zara was going to be left out of the thing. But then if it's a gender divide, she's not being Coven strong by voting out Ali. So how did you see what she was telling you about saying she'd cooked this, and how did you kind of see, yeah, those relationships now and the fallout of this? Because yeah, those dynamics are so confusing because it's like there's like an axis of like gender and then graduates, non-graduates, and like everyone's
I feel like
plotted
you're crashing out as
differently.
hard as
And the way,
I
yeah, Max, the way that
crashing
Max yeah, well, yeah, Max saw it in just like a really interesting way because he was like across the axes, I think,
Yeah,
for where that is.
Max's opinion on this vote is something that I could not wrap my head around. I was doing the same thing that you were just doing. Like, but if you think this, then why did you do this? And why it doesn't make sense? And what are you actually thinking? Like, it was.
Yeah.
I came home from that tribal and they only show a snippet of it, but I was so mad at Max. I was infuriated. I think I had a little confessional at the back and I was just yelling at the camera. I was just mad because I was like, what have you just done? I was like, how can
What
you
had
not?
you
I've,
expected him to do? Like, who were the
I
two people you expected him
had
to send out?
I think I had expected him to send Karen home, and I think I was expecting him to send AJ home, like back to camp, so we could isolate Miles. But yeah,
Yes.
him sending Laura. I think I've spoken to him about it twice after the game, and I still don't remember what exactly he said because it hasn't stuck in my brain because it hasn't made sense. I'm like, wait, what? Why were you planning on doing that? That still doesn't make
What
sense.
he
Like it's
said
been
on
like
Instagram was, yeah, he thought it was like a gender thing, and then he could be the swing vote between Ali and Miles.
that was yeah. So he wanted to have his moment, and I love Maxi for that because he does create like everyone can say that they hate his little impressions and stuff like that, but you see 50% of Max. That was Max for the camera. Max outside of the camera, he is the greatest person. He is so sweet and charming and lovely and beautiful, and he does love the game of Survivor a lot. But Max also has a flair for the dramatics. So this tribal, I think the biggest thing for Max was he was looking at how can I make this really entertaining and fun, but also be in control of the vote and have something to put on my resume and have this huge dramatic tribal. And I think he lost sight of the fact that when you're doing that, you're still playing with human emotions and you're going to scare people. You're going to terrify them. And you know what? You're pretty lucky that votes didn't get put on you for doing that. That was an insane tribal. So I think
Yeah.
he was really uncomfortable with the gender divide. And this is the thing that I was really frustrated about is like, Max, yes, we had a strong connection with the girls, but I'm coming to you now. So there shouldn't be a gender divide. They're working with the boys. You're making it more of a thing than it is now because we're splitting it up and we're all working together. So the fact that you're sat there and you're still trying to focus on this gender thing that we're now showing you is not a thing, you're making it more of a thing. It's, oh my God, it was the most infuriating thing to sit there. And I think I saw my face watching back that tribal and I'm like this, just staring into the distance because I was like, what is he doing? What is he doing? I was like, is he turning on me? I was genuinely petrified that he was turning on me because I was like, he's sent home my two closest allies. Is that because he's going to get the boys and get AJ to come for me? Like, and they easily could have because they got out Ali. So I was like, I could have easily been a target. Sorry, one second. Oh,
100%. 100%. Because at that point, you don't know who the graduates are. So if they're coming for someone on your side and you've given them the power to do that, like they definitely could have voted you out. He left you guys open to, I mean, I guess he's not seeing it right, but like he
yeah,
wasn't
he
playing with
left.
the right information, and then he was being like ballsy on top of that, like then he's playing fast and loose without all the information. Like it definitely could have been a bad situation for you. Left you super vulnerable.
Yeah, and I was terrified that tribal council. Like you can see it when you watch it back. My face is just in shock, and I'm terrified. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's getting me out. He's working with AJ and Miles instead. I've just given him my trust, and he's going to completely screw me over. So luckily, it was Ali at that time and not me. But it easily could have been me, and that was the scary thing that Max didn't see at the time. I think he thought he had more of a read on AJ and Miles and the girls. Like he really thought he had a good read on Zara and Karen when he did not. Unfortunately, I think his read was all wrong that entire tribal and over that day. And I think he was really clouded by this idea of making a really big tribal and being really entertaining and really fun. And it really clouded his judgment. And the frustrating thing was, I think I sat with him for about an hour before that tribal and sort of walked him through every move and said, okay, if we do this, then this is going to happen. This is repercussions. We don't want to do that for our game. And he was sitting and listening and nodding and was like, okay, okay, okay. And then he did what he did anyway. So I must have not had enough pull over him to rein him in, unfortunately.
Maybe not more pull over prank than drama, to be fair. That's a very tough pull in the other direction. So don't blame yourself too much. But did you believe Zara when she said that she just screwed up the vote, or did you know something had gone awry?
No, not at all. I think if you watch back closely, you can see my nose scrunch up when I'm cuddling her. I'm like, I was not happy. And I did have a little confessional after. And I was like, I've seen Zara cry. We have seen that the other team got like their letters and stuff, and we both bawled our eyes out together. I was like, that is the fakest cry I've seen from this woman. I was like, I know you. You did not screw up. You are one of the smartest people on this island. You did not screw up that vote. It was very, very clear to me that it was intentional, and that's how I knew that the soft five or whatever they were calling it at that stage was going to become a real problem, and how I knew that when coming back from that tribal, it was going to be me, Max, and Laura on the bottom. And we're very lucky that we went into a tribe swap the next day, because I'm not sure what would have happened. I think it would have been me on the chopping block next.
So what had been your relationship with Ali? Um, yeah, like was losing Ali herself important? Because Ali, we saw her like throwing the Coven under the bus, not on purpose, but like to the brawn. But did you have like a good connection with her otherwise?
Yeah, I had a really great relationship with Ali. I think the hard thing was Ali was grating people a bit as well. She was becoming a bit of a rich in that sense. I think it wasn't shown, but she did have a big, I think, argument with AJ the night before she was voted out. I think it was. Um, and yeah, she was starting to really push a lot of the wrong buttons for people. And she was becoming someone that was a bit unreliable for the vote. And it was hard to work with her at that stage. I knew that we needed her as a number, because she was someone that had come up to me at every point and told me all the information she'd heard. But she was also doing that with a lot of people, which was really, really making it hard to sort of vouch for her and work with her. I think even that the vote where she does go home, Max is pushing for her, and I'm sort of pulling Max back and saying, no, no, let's not do that right now. Ali had this sort of connection to Max where they had this sort of squabbling brother and sister relationship, but she was a ride or die for Max. And I was like, Max, I know she's annoying you. That's fine, but she's a number for us, and we need that if we're going to continue moving forward. Because if we don't work with her, we're going to be put in the minority really, really quickly. So Ali was a really great person. She was really fun, but she was grading a lot of people. She was the fire warden, and she was in charge of the rice, and she wouldn't let anyone touch anything. And that was making it really hard for people to get along with her in a sense. So I kept choosing people that were grading people, which was bad for my game.
Yeah, well, if it makes you feel better from the things I've heard, it does seem like Laura was going to be the next target. So you had a little bit of time if you didn't swap, although Mars was obviously going to try for Laura, but it feels like that was the next, who knows, but that feels like that was the next target. But you are going to be saved by the swap here, or Laura is going to be saved to get to the swap. How are you feeling about this group? Because if anything, you're left with Rich, who we see you wanted him to know you'd been saving him, and he immediately will not know. He's actually going to immediately flip on you. Then
Yeah.
you've got Kaylin, who just hasn't, well, to be fair, like you didn't see him as part of like your group. He's voted against Ali. AJ, that's an issue. Karen, who you have the relationship with, but who hasn't been with you, and then 4 new Brawn. So what was like the lay of the land for you in this new Brawn tribe? The Brawn? I don't know. Is
Yeah,
that what you were? Brawn, sure.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, going to swap, I mean, I was grateful in the sense that I was now in the majority with the brains, which put me in a better position going forward. So I kind of had been a little bit saved by the buff, but it was really difficult because going into it, I was with AJ, who I knew had my name out for a little while, and then I had to sort of convince Rich to get back on track, and then I also had Paulie and Noonan, who were very comfortable saying my name as well. So as much as I was in the majority for it, I did not feel comfortable at all. Um, and I was really, really having to work on my relationship with Karen and Kaylin. And this is sort of where my relationship with Kaylin sort of takes off as well. And yeah, I think the animosity with AJ doing AJ's thing really brought Karen and I a bit closer together, which was really helpful. But going into this, I was stressed. I was not well. I was also looking at Max and Laura on the other side and knowing that they were in a minority. So even if we didn't go to tribal, I was stressed out. So it was not a fun position to be in, but I think I did make the most of it. And I think there is a lot of commentary online, and there is things that I will agree with, that I think I did play a better game when Laura and I were separated. Um, I think a lot of the time, Laura and I's relationship was too tied together for us to play our best individual games, and she would say the same thing, that we both were better off without each other in a way, which is, it was a sad thing, having your bestie there, but it was also better for us to be apart. But going into this tribe, I was stressed out. I was not excited about it. I did go in and I really tried to work on Ursula and Kristen. And Karen and I had kind of made a little four with them and said that we'd protect them and all that kind of stuff. We were working, we were working and hustling hard as soon as we got there.
What was your perspective on this first Rich vote, where we know that he's like throwing your name out, and you, well, AJ as well, is really targeting you? I don't know how much you knew about who was targeting you, and like how much you were being targeted and who that was kind of coming from. So there's like the perspective that you can go for one of the brawns or like a Rich, which is what ends up happening. So what had you wanted to happen here, and how much danger did you feel like you were in immediately on that first vote?
Yeah, so I think the first vote, we were looking at Paulie or Noonan for the first vote. I'm pretty sure anyway. It could have been Ursula. I know it was one of three, and I know Kristen was always safe because Karen and I had formed a really strong connection with Kristen and had kind of made sure that anytime we were bringing up the bronze name, Kristen wasn't brought up. Um, but I got told my name was out there, I think like a minute before we had to head to tribal. So I didn't have long to sort of digest that. And AJ was the one that told me, but the way that he told me, such typical AJ fashion as well. He would like come up to you and just say something and be like, "Yeah, so it's you. So don't freak out, but it's gonna be you." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Don't freak out. What do you mean? Don't freak out?" You say it so nonchalantly. He's like, "Don't worry, I've got it." Blah blah. But him saying that Rich was bringing up my name, it felt so manipulative at that time because I knew Rich's personality, and I knew that he was quite headstrong, and if he did feel like um, I didn't have his back, that he would go for me. So it made sense. But AJ coming to me and telling me it was Rich, and he's like, "Don't worry, I've got all the bronze on side. We're gonna save you." Blah blah blah. It just felt really off to me. I was like, something is not right here. So even though I knew that Richard put up my name and the Brawns were going to vote with me, I still felt like I was fighting for my life in that tribal, because AJ was the one that told me, and I can't trust AJ at this point. So, what am I supposed to believe here? So, it was really, really difficult and challenging going into that tribal. And I think I'd made a few pictures. There was probably only one that made it to air, but I made a few pictures, and they were strong enough to sort of discredit Rich and help the Brawns move along forward with me, which I was really, really grateful for. But yeah, it was not a fun travel to go to.
What were you hoping for after Rich leaves? Like, how are you hoping the dynamics will shake out? Are you just hoping to like pick off bronze and just make it through back to the other side, or like did you have like specific targets in mind at that point?
Yeah, look, I'll be so honest. I was just grateful to make it through that vote, and then I was going to be processing who to move forward with. So at the time of the vote, I knew that Rich was sort of the swing there, and we needed to cut off the swing. But I also knew that Karen and I had been working really hard on a relationship with Kristen and Ursula, so we knew that they were not strong with Noonan. Um, and they were fractured. They weren't a strong four. We, as much as AJ put my name out there and Kaylin sort of flip flopped between being with me or not, I knew that they would stick strong as a four for the Brains, just to get through the next few. So I was really working hard on my relationship with the two girls and trying to sort of swing them over to our side so that if the next vote did happen, it was going to be Noonan. And that would mean that we're way in the majority there, and that we could continue sort of taking one or two off. And then I was really hoping that we could switch it up and move it along to AJ.
How did it happen then that it became Ursula as the target next over Pauline Noonan?
Yeah, so I think the vote was initially going to be on either Paulie or Noonan. I can't remember which one exactly it was locked in to be. I think it might have been Paulie at that stage. And then it came back that Ursula had thrown Karen's name out there, which we now see from the footage that it was actually, I think it was actually Paulie that put it out there, and Noonan and Ursula was kind of just going along with the plan and all that kind of stuff. So I think the thing was is that Karen, that was the first time Karen's properly heard her name as a potential vote. I mean, everyone hears their name of people saying, "Oh, this person is thinking you," or blah blah blah, but never a concrete plan. So then I think that really switched gears up for Karen, where she was like, "Nope, that's an immediate threat. I want her out." So it switched up, and I tried to convince Karen. I was like, "It's okay. We still have the numbers. Like, you don't need to worry about her. It's fine. We're working with them. Like, we don't know that Paulie has said that. It's not 100%, but AJ was really, really gunning for Ursula in this round. So by convincing Karen that her name was out there, AJ just manipulated it all and got Karen to vote where he wanted. And it was so frustrating. It was so hard because I could see it sort of unfolding where we'd switched it. I think it was initially AJ was pushing for Ursula, and we had pushed back and were putting it on Paulie. And AJ got his way again. And I could see
Yeah.
it happening every time he got his way. And I was like, why is no one clocking this? He's manipulating this whole thing. But unfortunately, I was just one vote, one voice amongst the masses. And I got I got silenced a few times.
Yeah, another theme of the season is AJ getting his way, much to your frustration as well. I've been going through the next several weeks as well. And speaking of that, well, this is all going to be during the hostage taking of it all, where, and you'll have a different perspective here because a lot of AJ's perspective is like, if we can't save all the brains, at least the hope is like Max and Laura will fall rather than Zara and Miles. And you have a different perspective of who you want to get through on the other tribe to
Yeah.
AJ. And then there's like, the frustration that he's kind of putting them in danger. Although to be fair, if it's for you guys to win challenges, that might be a good thing for you, especially if you're not super comfortable on this tribe as well. So how was that put to you? What were your feelings about it through all of this, where he kind of brings it up and then he takes it to the mat the next day? What were you thinking through all of this?
Yeah, I think I chatted to him a few times and I got really frustrated with him because his plan was clear to him. And I mean, his plan was okay in terms of the fact that he had Karen and he had Kaylin still with him, which were part of his graduates alliance. So really the only person he was putting off was me, because if they did go to tribal, they were going to be sending home Max or Laura, and that was my alliance. So I was like, what are you doing? We're meant to be working together, and we can pick off a Brawn here, but instead you're going to say you're going to send the brains to the slaughter, and I'm going to lose one of my allies. But AJ didn't care because I wasn't one of AJ's allies. So that made it really, really difficult and kind of blatantly obvious to me that yes, he was going to work with me for a few votes, but he realistically didn't care about my game because he was voluntarily leading them to the slaughter. And so that's another sort of reason why I was so on board the getting out AJ train, because I was like, how is no one seeing this? It's so obvious. He doesn't like he's got his own little allies, and that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do in the game. But we're meant to be working together now, and I'm one of his allies now, and he doesn't care about me at all. He doesn't care about my game. He doesn't want me moving forward. He'll use me for a vote, and I'm not comfortable being just a vote for someone. I want to be in control of my game, and even if it gets me a few days further, it's going to screw me in the long run. So I was really trying to get people to see how big of a target he was making for himself. But I think, in the same sense, when people think that someone's a huge target, they think they're a shield. And that's why they're okay with them moving forward, because it gets them further. And it is a sneaky way to play by sort of pushing someone in front of you and following along behind them, while they take out everyone else in their path. But at the end of the day, and it's what he said in Final Tribal, is you have to drop the shields at some point, and people weren't willing to do that. And it was really, really blatantly obvious to me that they weren't willing to drop AJ at any point. And it was frustrating. It was so frustrating because I couldn't do much about it, until we move a little bit further along in the Bronze 2.0, where I'm trying to work with Paulie and I'm trying to work with Noonan and Karen, and I was so close. I was so close to getting them on side to take out AJ at that point, and we just had a little bit of a spin, and it ruined everything for us, which was really frustrating. Um, but yeah, AJ and I's relationship at that point working together, and he kept saying, "Don't you trust me? Don't you trust me?" And I was like, "No, I don't trust you. Why would I trust you? You've
Yeah.
given me no reason to trust you." He's like, "Logan, but why would I save you?" And I was like, "I don't know. You're crazy. I don't know. You're insane."
Well, I mean, Max is gonna go for that, right? Like, that's what ends up happening when they do throw that challenge and Max goes. So what was it like watching that watching that back when watching it from the other side on the other
Yeah.
tribe where you lose an ally to the fact that the hostage plan has gone maybe not as awry for AJ because he didn't really care about Max, but like this is not a great situation for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was frustrating to watch it back as well, and then even more frustrating to see Max do Max's thing. I was like, you could have been safe. You literally had your little Jezebel in your pocket, and I think Max still got in the same position that he did when he was in charge of that alley vote. And he kind of blew it up for himself, which was, I mean, in hindsight, probably not the people I want to be working with in the end anyway. But it was really frustrating. I think walking back into the challenge the next day and seeing Max gone, I was devastated because that's one less ally that I have on the other side. And I knew how strong Miles and Zara were with AJ. And I talked to Kaylin a lot on that tribe about potentially flipping on AJ. And it was like trying to push a rock up a hill with Kaylin. There was no budging on the AJ situation. He was really comfortable listening to any other plans and anyone else, but as soon as you brought up AJ's name, it was he backed up straight away. There was no movement on that whatsoever. So it was just every vote after that, it was becoming really clear to me that I was going to struggle to get AJ out, and I didn't know how I was going to do it, and I was going to try my best, but it wasn't going to happen. I could see it because none of the numbers were falling into place for me. I was trying my hardest to convince everyone that he was the biggest strategic threat, and he's going to take out whoever he wants, and everyone's just going to follow him because they think he's the biggest shield. But for me, that wasn't a part of my plan, and I unfortunately just didn't have the numbers at any point to take him out properly. And even in the Noonan vote, which is coming up, even if we did flip over and take him out in that one, he plays his idol, so he was well protected there.
Yeah, I mean, what would that have looked like if you'd been able to do that? Would that have just been coming over the top with the bronze with Kristen as well, and then Paulie do it, and the four of you voting on AJ in a world where he doesn't have an idol? Yeah, was that a plan at all in terms of what you're
Yeah,
thinking there?
it was definitely a plan. So I'd been speaking to Paulie especially a lot, and Kristen was not happy with AJ at this stage. I think she was really pushing for him as well, and like hated the idea of the hostages because she obviously had PD really close to her on that side. And yeah, so I could have worked with Paulie, Noonan, Kristen, and myself to go over and vote out AJ. And I was trying to get Karen into that as well, but we were really hesitant. I think I'm because of how brazen he was with his plans. There was always this question mark of, okay, if you're that brazen, do you have an idol in your pocket? Is that why you're playing so out there, because you know you have that protection? So that was always a thought, and we wanted to make sure that when you take the shot at someone, they're not coming back to camp with you. So if we did take the shot at AJ that night, it would have looked like the bronze flipping and myself flipping onto AJ, but he would have protected himself with an idol, and Paulie would have protected himself with an idol, and Noonan still goes home, and I would have made a further enemy. So it wasn't going to be good for me. And we kind of knew at that point that there was probably something else going on. The reason why he was playing so brazenly, or being able to go out there in the open and say, yep, this is my plan, I'm taking you hostages and come and get me if you want. Because we're like, who does that? That's terrifying.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the challenge as well, where he's going to throw the challenge back because Max is has been voted out. So were you aware of like how much were you part of the throwing the challenge at that point?
Yeah, so I knew that we were throwing a challenge that day. So I think the original brains, we all knew that the challenge was being thrown, and it was to get out Paulie. But this is obviously where I'm looking at the opportunity to take out AJ. But I just thought, I mean, you've thrown challenge, you're so brazen about this, you've got to have an idol in your pocket. Like there has to be something going on. And that's why I just did not feel comfortable flipping at that stage, because I knew that if it came back to bite me in the ass, I would be way worse off, and I would just be the next one out because I'd flipped. So um, that was kind of our chance, but I'm also glad that we didn't take it because it would have backfired.
So what was your perspective on like the Paulie Noonan target there at the point where you felt you couldn't target AJ?
Yeah, so we knew that it was going to be sort of Noonan or Paulie, and we were pushing for Paulie, but we were also, I think we were pretty aware that one of them had an idol. We just, I don't know, there's a feeling you get out there. It's really hard to put your finger on it, but you can see the way people behave in conversations if they're looking for idols. So you can generally pick up a lot of context clues whether you think that someone has an idol or not. So we knew that we were going for Paulie, and we knew that there was going to be a backup vote on Noonan. Um, and I really did want to flip to AJ. I really did, but I just didn't have the confidence that it wasn't going to fire back on me. Um, so that's why obviously we didn't flip, and then we fall into the next day or the next thing of Zara coming over, and that really destroys any chance that we had of getting out AJ. Because Paulie's back there, he's going to work with us no matter what. He wants AJ out, and Kristen is following along with Karen and myself. So we did have the potential to take him out, but yeah, as soon as Zara walks in that door, it all went to crap pretty much. She pulled AJ and Kaylin Bright in. She'd even gone to Karen and was like, "You're getting really close with Logan. I can see you're really close with Logan. What's happening here?" And I'm like, "Oh, all my plans out the window again."
Yeah, that did, yeah, that was very helpful to AJ, and he said the same thing where, Paulie was gonna go. You and Karen are talking about just, like, piling votes onto AJ, but that seems like a best case scenario of just, like, annoying AJ at this point, let alone there's no chance of even taking him out.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of funny things that make it to air where we're talking about funny little plans and just things to entertain ourselves. But um, I think what you don't see is that we're all big, very very big game players, and we all look at the repercussions of what that singular vote would do onto him and how that would affect his mental state and what how he's going to react. So as much as we can talk about just frustrating him and wanting to spook him and stuff like that, you do have to consider coming back to camp with someone who has been spooked, and you have to look at, okay, well, what are they going to do after that? So we can talk about it and chit chat and laugh and giggle all we want, but it was never going to be a realistic plan to actually spook him like that, because it wasn't going to fall back well on us. So we knew that that wasn't an option. We knew that that was just a fun little thing that we wanted to do, but it was not going to be the smart move for either of us to actually put votes on him when he was coming back, because gosh knows what he would have done.
It does feel like a couple of good things are going to happen here. The first is that I do think that, like, your relationship with Karen seems to progress really well in kind of the way Karen was pulled between you and AJ. AJ's idol comes out, she's annoyed about that. You're there, like, in her ear, bonding with her about the annoyance over AJ. And your relationship with Karen, like with C, she's going to tell you to play her idol. Like, that's going to be important through the merge. So, did you see the way? Like, I know you'd been close early, but then there was like that little graduate bump. Did you kind of see that it improved and progressed through the swap period?
Yeah, I think so. Karen and I always had a really strong friendship. And I think the more I could see about our relationship progressing is the more she included me or wanted to talk strategically just to myself. So I mean, back on the Brains Day, it'd be a group discussion with the Coven about our strategy and moving forward and stuff like that, and maybe a couple of side conversations here and there. But Bronze 2.0 really like put a spotlight on our relationship of how well we were progressing in the game together and how much we wanted to move forward with each other. But I think Karen was really torn between being a part of this graduates alliance and having Zara and having AJ and Miles and Kaylin, but also wanting to work with me and knowing that they didn't want to work with me. So she was kind of in between that, because I mean you can have an alliance and have your little side pieces, but if one of your side pieces is a target for the alliance, that's not a fun spot to be in. And we've seen that throughout the entire show that, yeah, if you did have that person on the side and your alliance is targeting them, it is a really hard spot to navigate, because for your personal game, it's best to keep that person in, but then you also have to pander to your alliance. So it becomes a difficult spot. And I think the hardest part was when Zara did come over, and Zara picked up really, really quickly how strong Karen and I had gotten together. And she did not like that one bit because we were obviously not a part of the graduates.
So going into, well, before we get to the merge, actually, you find the idol. with Karen and Kaylin, we talked in the X interview, like you felt like you couldn't hide that from them. So there's, issues there because we know Karen's going to tell Zara and then Kaylin's going to go back to the guys on that. Like, what were your feelings about having the idol and how are you mitigating any kind of risk around, the fact that other people didn't know about it?
Yeah, so the idol was a tough one because I mean, obviously it's a bucket list item. It was something that I knew that had held protection for me, and I could pass it over to Laura if need be, to protect her. And I felt yeah a bit trapped when I did find it because yeah they were obviously like 2 meters away from me, and as soon as I pull it, they're right there, and I had I had to tell them obviously because it would look way too sneaky, and if I put it back, they could grab it. So um, I felt confident that it was in my possession, but I was feeling confident in my relationship with them that we could use it together and it could be used in a plan. I knew it was never a sort of an individual idol as soon as I found it because I had to share it with them. And I knew sort of walking out of that, I didn't have the faith that Karen wouldn't tell Zara straight away. She didn't tell her straight away. She told her a couple of days later, but she didn't tell her immediately, I don't think. And I didn't have the faith that Kaylin wouldn't tell people either. So I was really nervous that AJ knew about my idol straight away. But Kaylin actually kept it a secret for a while. I think it comes up and it's when Miles is trying to steal an idol. Um, AJ is telling him that I have one, or Kaylin's telling AJ, and then AJ is telling Miles, but that wasn't a sure thing. So Kaylin hadn't actually told him explicitly until I think the day after that I had one. So Miles trying to steal my idol was never actually a huge possibility. So it was always going to be Kristen's idol because that was the public one, and it was more of a question mark on whether I had one or not. And I think when we got to merge and we did the cocktail party, AJ went around drunkenly and told everyone that I found something at the cocktail party and it was an idol, and got everyone's backs up because everyone's like, oh, she has something and she hasn't told anyone. And truthfully, I did have something, but I didn't find it there. So it was as much as it was a godsend for me, it was also a bit of a target on my back as well.
So, what were your thoughts getting into this merge? Did you feel like you were in a better position now, you getting back to Laura, and Laura hopefully had like a Kate and Morgan, and you had this good relationship with Karen, and AJ had hopefully made some enemies? Like, were you feeling good about your spot here at the merge? And you had Kristen, and Kristen had PD, but then also Kristen and PD had like Karen and Zara. So it was very complicated. But how did you feel about your spot here?
Yeah, everyone's connections were kind of overlapping, which I think is what made this merge so confusing. Because everyone was sort of in pairs, but then their pair had another pair, but then you had that other pair as well. So it was really convoluted of who actually stood by who. I felt great getting back to Laura and sort of getting all the goss on what had happened on the other tribe and sort of finding my footing. And she had yeah really tried to lock in Kate and Morgan, and I'd tried to lock in Kristen. So coming into that, even if I didn't have Karen with me fully, at least I had Laura and I had PD and Kristen and Morgan and Kate. But unfortunately, the relationships change and people move along with whoever they feel safest with, and kind of put me in a bad spot. And AJ is the master manipulator out there, and I think back on Brawn's 2.0, he would just casually in conversation just be like, oh, Laura is just honestly, she could win right now. Like, and he wasn't believing that, but he was just putting that out there, like, in a sense of she's just doing an amazing job. And also, Logan's her best friend, and Logan's her best friend, and Logan's her best friend. And Laura is amazing and amazing, and just constantly painting these social targets on people's back. And it's what he did so, so well in this game, to make people feel like there were other bigger threats than AJ himself. So coming into Merge, I felt secure that I'd made enough connections and that Laura had done enough as well to protect us. Um, and then the initial, I think, Jesse vote was really a show of faith to Kate and Morgan, who wanted Jesse out. And I had no reason to get Jesse out. It didn't bother me at all. Like, he was not someone that was on my radar. He wanted to work with me. He wanted to get out Zara, who at that stage, she was on my hit list as well. So he was someone that I could actually work with. But going further, I wanted to show faith to Kate and Morgan, and really show them that we could work together. And I didn't even want to win immunity that day. I was going to drop out halfway through because it was the first immunity. And then looking over and seeing it was Paulie and Jesse that was still in, as well as Miles, knowing that those were the two targets for that tribal council, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to pull this out of the bag, aren't I? So that was really frustrating. But putting my ass out there to see that I can do individual immunities, and then also align myself with the girls, was sort of a big thing for me because it showed them that I wanted to work with them and showed them that I would put aside whatever I wanted at that time to help them and solidify us as an alliance. Unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. Wasn't enough to get them fully on side.
Was there any part of you that was like, now we had been going for AJ, and should we still be looking at that as an option? Or were you just like, that's not, like we're looking at Brain Strong, we're looking at kind of like, you know, I don't know, yeah, helping Kayn and Morgan with that? Or were you like, let's still try, do what I've been trying to do this whole time and cut out someone who's been saying my name for a very, very long time?
Yeah, so I think the first vote, I was happy to go with Jesse to sort of strengthen that alliance. And the next vote is where I'm pushing for AJ and I'm saying, okay, I've given you guys what you've wanted every time. Anytime I've brought him up, you guys have pushed me back and said someone else. And I've said, yes, I'm being a team player, but now it's time for you to step up and be a team player for me. And we need to go for AJ. And I think that's when the PD vote comes up. And I think the reason I didn't push it that hard is because we were trying to go brain strong. We weren't sure what the bronze were going to do. I hadn't been with a lot of them for that period of time, so I wasn't up to date on how they played the game and if I could trust them. So I didn't want to go for PD either because obviously I'd been working really hard on Kristen because Kristen came with PD, so that's a package deal there. So yeah, I didn't want to go for PD at all. Unfortunately, Laura did. I think she got a bit confused. So I think Kate and Morgan had said about getting out one of the boys, and it kind of got a bit confused about which one it was. And that's why Laura was going really strong on PD because she was trying to back the girls and trying to show her the same thing that I did in the previous tribal, which was to be strong for the alliance. And because I pushed back on that, it kind of turned things around. And there was a lot of discussion after the PD vote that led to my potential vote out. And it was a lot of confusion. It was a lot of people getting their wires crossed, some things that weren't said that came up that were not true. And just, yeah, there's a lot of manipulation that goes in as well. And we see that throughout the whole game of people playing on things that are not true and just people believing it straight away. And that's the game, unfortunately. But unfortunately, it lost me my bestie out there. So that sucked.
Yeah, I mean, before we get there, you as you're saying, you're trying to protect PD over this poorly vote, and then Miles is going to use the idol stealer on Kristen's idol, the only idol he knows about to that point, to take Kristen's idol. Kristen is an ally of yours. PD is an option for you as well. So it wasn't just that they did this like big annoying thing. It was like it cut off other options of the knees. And having spoken to Miles about it, like I get Miles's perspective, but even more so having spoken to Karen about it, I'm like, I get that move more and more because I feel like it really cut off Karen's options. And as you're saying, you're investing in the Kristen PD relationship as well. And I feel like the edit of the season, this is why I'm loving doing the deep dives. And I'm going to be, I've like even got more because I feel like the edit really, not only just smoothed out some complex things, but like left out these big chunks, which was so hard to analyze. And certainly like PD as is like, and Kristen with him as this like really important like central part of the merge dynamics rather than where we saw them kind of on the bottom is one of the biggest misses in the edit, and that made this move really confusing. But I totally get now how that's an option lost for you, and like you come back and you're super upset. AJ has said mostly at him at the way that this has gone.
Yeah.
And I guess my couple of questions is like, firstly, was there any thought when like Kristen's idol is stolen from the beginning because she's an ally of yours, is there any thought like, what are we doing? Because I thought that showed a lack of kind of power for Kristen, that no one cared to get up. Because I was like, imagine if your idol got stolen. I was like, you wouldn't just let the tribal council go ahead. Like, we'd be having conversations.
Yeah.
Kristen would just go, and I think maybe it speaks to her like lovely personality. Not that you don't have it, but I'm just saying that Kristen, like, she gets her food stolen, and Kristen like kind of just rolls with things. But I'm surprised now hearing how important she was for so many people that wasn't more of a thing when Miles steals the idol,
Yeah.
let alone then playing it so poorly and like upending the whole vote on a vote we now know, a person we now know in PD was very important to a lot of people. So yeah, what was that experience like of that whole tribal council and that all going down and then after it as well?
Yeah, that tribal council, oh gosh, it irritated me so much. So there's a whispering happening with Miles and AJ, and right before this is when Laura had come up to me and said, "Okay, I've got this 6 alliance that I've been working on with Morgan and Kate, you and I," and then she throws in AJ and Miles, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "I don't want to work with AJ and Miles." I was like, I've been working with AJ. We can't trust AJ. Like, I've got plenty of other options here. I've got Kristen, I've got PD. That's who I want to move forward with. And she was really solid on this, where she said, "No, I've got them. They want to work with you." Blah blah blah. And I think what got confused there is that she had talked to AJ and Miles, and she had talked to the girls, and AJ and Miles had been really really confident about moving along with Laura, and Laura just assumed that that meant the two of us together. So she sort of created this six alliance. And I don't think Morgan and Kate had also heard about this six alliance. It was kind of more a strategy going on with Laura and AJ and Miles, and then including other people. And she told me, but when it gets back to me, it's like meant to be a rock solid six or whatever. And so when we get to tribal that night, and Miles does that, and AJ and Miles are whispering to Kate and Morgan, that whole night, I'm feeling so uncomfortable because I was like, hang on, you mean these people are meant to be in an alliance with us and they're not telling us anything? I was like, what is going on here? Which is why when I come back to camp that night, I'm furious. I'm so mad, because AJ was meant to be in this alliance with me and has basically ignored it and burnt me again. And I think what you don't see is that that conversation I had with AJ was about 5 to 10 minutes long. And he was heated at me. He was very heated at me. He was yelling back at me and goes, "So we're not in an alliance. We're not in an alliance." And I was like, "No, you've just burnt me. That's what I'm saying. Like, what do you like?" Because I was asking him, I'm like, "What about this alliance?" And he's like, "What alliance?" I was like, "This alliance with Laura and blah, 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 and Morgan and Kate." And he's like, "What? So you're saying we can't be in an alliance?" And so that's when I'm getting heated with him. But they obviously just cut like a little bit and just shows me yelling at AJ and seems like I'm the biggest hothead in the world. But we were both having a very heated conversation. And I think the reason it was targeted at AJ was because it looked like he was the one in that tribal that was whispering to Kate and Morgan. So Miles was doing Miles's thing. AJ knew about it, and AJ was the one chatting to Kate and Morgan. So Miles was just sitting there doing whatever Miles wanted to do. So that's what made it look really untrustworthy on AJ's behalf, that he was up to something shady. I knew that Miles was going to do his plan. I actually knew about this advantage Miles had, but it got also convoluted. So Laura had explained it to me that it was an idol nullifier. Oh, not, yeah, an idol nullifier. So she'd explained it that if he played it at tribal, it could nullify someone else's idol play. So that's what I thought it was.
Oh, Laura told you.
Yeah.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
knew that
Because
Miles.
Miles told Laura.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So straight away, the first day of merge, she told me that. So I knew he had something, but yeah, it came out that it was an idol nullifier, not an idol stealer. So I don't know how that got mixed up. But if I had have known that it was a stealer instead of a nullifier,
Probably because there was no idols. Well, has there been a nullifier in Australian Survivor? Because the idol stealer, like we've had that in the US, and obviously we've had
yeah,
both.
I'm not
Have we
sure.
had a nullifier in? I think Ziggy had one in 2017, maybe. I mean, either way, that's not. It's not. Neither of them are very traditional Australian
Yeah,
Survivor advantages. So you're playing with like it's a kind of a confusing spot to
yeah,
be in, probably either
yeah.
way. It's certainly for an idol stealer, which was the first time ever.
Yeah, so I mean, if I had known it was an idol stealer, I probably would have handed my idol off to someone else to hold on to for the night, because I wouldn't have had full faith that Karen hasn't said anything, that Kaylin hasn't said anything, and I mean, I probably would have handed it to potentially Kristen, which I mean would have been interesting because she still got her stolen. So if I was going to trust someone to hold on to it, it would have been Kristen. Kristen knew about my idol as well, so I think I told her at merge that I had an idol. So trying to bring her and PD in closer and closer. So I sort of gave that information to her. But by that stage, I think everyone knew. So it was really more of a public idol than anything. It was more public than Kristen's at some stage. So yeah, that tribal was really infuriating to be a part of because yeah, I've come off the back of Laura telling me about this alliance that supposedly includes me, and then AJ doing his shifty thing at tribal. And I think the reason, yeah, I was mad at AJ was because he was the one sort of whispering and doing all these things, and we kept trying to ask him like, what are you doing? What are you saying? And he was like, and not giving us anything. And then I know not Miles is not someone that you go back to camp and you don't yell at Miles. Like, not that I was trying to yell at AJ, but Miles is someone that if you just ask him a question, he's just going to be blunt and straight with you. So I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? What was the reasoning behind that? And he just explained it, and I was like, okay. And he's like, so Logan, I don't really want to work with you. And I was like, cool, all right, no worries. Like, there's no need to get like, I guess, heated with Miles because Miles is so straight up and down. Like, he will just tell you as it is. AJ was the one that kind of goes and sneakily does things behind your back, which is you give him a little bit of trust and then he just blows it all up again. So that was, I guess, the frustration that came across with AJ, that I was trying to trust him at points, and then every time I did, he'd blow it back in my face and then be like, "But you don't trust me? Why don't you trust me?" And I was like, "Because you've given me 10 reasons not to. And then you keep telling me, like, oh, but you don't trust me." And I was like, "No, I don't at all." So, yeah, that was a very frustrating tribal to be a part of. And that kind of also, the blowback from camp solidified me being the next fight.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, firstly, Ziggy did have the idol nullifier, so at least that happened. But I mean, either way, like, I mean, then people are relying on information of a nullifier. This is
Yeah.
a first time a Strand Survivor idol stealer. Okay, yeah. So, what do you think? What leads to this happening? Where the numbers are going to be very hard to wrestle back. They never get wrestled back, really,
Yeah.
ever. On the fact that, things happen. There are ups and downs, but like, yeah, the fact that Laura's going to go here, you're going to be the majority, like the alpha target of a split, and you play your idol. But yeah, I mean, what do you attribute this to, that it gets to this point?
So mainly it's like sort of the AJ pushed, and then Zara was very happy to see the back of me as well at that stage. Paulie was sort of floating with whoever was going to protect him. So he was just a number for people at that stage. And obviously, I'd written Paulie's name down a few times, so he wasn't really keen on keeping me around either. And then at that stage, sort of that blow up with AJ had really put off Morgan and Kate. I think they're very passive people, and they're very calm about strategy, and they don't take a lot personally out there. So that kind of blow up I had with AJ was a culmination of so many days of hearing my name out there and him saying, "Don't you trust me?" and going back and forth with him. And it was just, yeah, just a culmination of this huge frustration that I had with AJ. And unfortunately, it was done in front of everyone. So the fight that we had together, um, Morgan and Kate didn't love that. And they then had heard that AJ, after the cocktail party, was running around and saying that I had an idol, and then we were trying to build an alliance with them. So they just had all this information that sort of turned them against me, I guess. So not me not sharing that I had an idol that I found at the cocktail party, apparently, um, put them off when we're trying to start an alliance, because they're like, "Why didn't you tell us you had an idol?" And I was like, "I didn't find it there." But by this stage, everyone knew, and I did want to tell you, but I knew at that stage pretty much everyone would know at that point, and I didn't know if I could trust you. So I'm not going to share my idol information with you 3 days into a new tribe. I was going to share it at some point. Probably would have done it after that vote, to really pull them in. And then Kristen was trying to protect herself, I guess. So if it wasn't Kristen, she was happy to go where the votes were. And I think we do see after the Laura vote out that I'm talking to Kristen and I say, "Yeah, you're probably the one that hurt the most, because I did try and protect you the entire Brawn swap." And what you don't see is that Kristen was really upset about that, and she was really devastated that I was hurt over it, and she was so apologetic and wanted to do anything to sort of make it up to me and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of built Kristen and I closer. But I was also manipulating Kristen doing that. I'm like, it's a game. Like, I knew that we were all going to vote for each other, but I really wanted to manipulate Kristen emotionally. So I wanted her to get in her feels. I wanted her to feel connected and feel like she owed me and all that kind of stuff, which then really messes it up for the Karen vote, which is why Kristen did what she did with Karen, because she felt so bad about not telling me about just to play my idol. So to make up for it, she's like, "I just didn't want that to happen again." So then she tells Karen, and the whole blow up. So my emotional manipulation worked on a lot of people. It just worked at the wrong time. A lot of the time, like, the seeds I planted worked, they just didn't work for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely like AJ's game, and we talked about like ranking, the people who yelled at him, or like ranking the yelling that happened to him in terms of like most justified. Like Noonan had it, you had it,
Mm.
Ali had it. Often, like people yelling at him worked very well for AJ. Like I think Ali yelling at him was a big part of the graduates being like, "We'll stick by you." And then, as you're saying, like if that, like, and he credits as well, like that Kate and Morgan came over on that, and that was like
Yeah,
that was such a death knell, because I mean that's the merge. And then like you do have people who want to work with you. We see with Karen, we see with Kristen in her own more passive ways, but the numbers just like aren't there. So
yeah.
going into this vote, you're targeting, I think, AJ. And what are the numbers you're hoping to have? Like, what are the dynamics you're seeing in this moment before you're about to find out from Karen at Tribal Council that like you have to play your idol, and everyone else is on a like you and Laura split?
Yeah, so I think from what I can remember, I mean, it's really hard because it was my vote out, so everything kind of went out the window, and I feel like I
Yeah.
have like a numbing sense on it. But I'm pretty sure we had the boys were going in one direction, and we were going to do myself, Laura, Kate, Morgan, Kristen, and potentially Paulie. I can't remember exactly who the sixth person was, but it was going to be enough to have the majority there. And they were, yeah, going to come over with us. And I was really confused because I kept seeing Zara and Karen pull away Kate and Morgan at that, like during that day. And I kept saying to Laura, like, I don't trust what's happening here. I can see them talking on the beach a lot. She's like, don't worry, they're going to side with us. They didn't really like Zara over on the other side. They're not going to work with her, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I just have a really bad feeling. And I did say that, like, I mean, obviously Karen did tell me, but I just had this awful feeling all day, like something was up. But Kate and Morgan were not the type that you kind of went over the plan 10 times with. I think you see that when Morgan later on gets frustrated when sort of plan just keeps turning or changing and stuff like that. So I knew that I couldn't go over the plan multiple times with them because it was just going to push them away. So I had to trust that what Laura had spoken to them about was going to happen, just because that was kind of the players that they were at that stage in the game. They were kind of like, yes, this is the plan. We're going with the plan. If it's not us, that's fine. And they kind of were a bit more dynamic and a bit more strategic sort of towards the end. But at that stage, they just didn't want to hear their names and they didn't want to fuss about it. And they just wanted it to be straight through. And I think sort of the fuss the night before with all these different plans and different alliances that weren't real and them getting brought into things that they weren't a part of really, really gave them a sour taste in their mouth and gave them sort of the energy to turn against me and against Laura. But yeah, my initial plan was, yeah, those two girls, myself, Kristen, and I think Paulie were going to go, or it could have just been the five of us, and we knew they were going to split on someone. I'm not 100% sure exactly what it
What
was.
about like a Kaylin?
Kaylin was never involved in that stage with us because we just knew he was too locked in with the graduates. I don't remember him being locked in with me at that stage. But yeah, I think we had the numbers to do AJ. It was going to be close, but we had the numbers to actually take it out, which was going to be so exciting. Again, I was finally getting my point where I was like, yes, people are finally listening, but they weren't.
So you think it's gonna be you're gonna have Karen, but not like a Zara.
Yeah,
You think you're gonna have Kristen,
it was the
Laura,
two girls, myself.
and then Kaden Morgan. Kaden Morgan makes that a 6 of 11.
Yeah. So yeah, it was going to be a six there. So that's where we had it. But obviously Kristen flip flopped and the girls flip flopped, and I think we had Paulie or potentially Miles. I can't remember. There was one extra person we had that we were going to do, and it could have been Karen as well. Can't remember. Can't remember.
Yeah, Karen would.
Too many fine details there. But we had a six that were going to go
Yeah,
to AJ, and they obviously did not.
I should know this. I was there. I was in Samoa. I should remember who was doing what. So yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of again half measures here, and Karen, who is again going to have the same thing happen to her in some sort of like poetic justice for you, is going to have this happen to her in the future. But she's going to tell you like at tribal to play your idol.
Yeah.
What are the feelings in that moment? And as like when even Laura goes, you're like it was everyone, and yeah, I mean, you're losing Laura, you're losing your idol, you're losing the numbers. And how did you feel about Karen and that? Like, she saves you, but at what cost? Like, what are your feelings in this? This must have been a lot.
Yeah, it was honestly, it was one of the worst feelings. So sitting there and having Karen whisper, and I mean, you can hear it with the mics and stuff on TV, but you could not hear her whisper. Like, that's why I'm like, what? Like, what are you saying? Because she was like, she was not moving her lips. She was like looking straight ahead, like not looking at me and just trying to give me a subtle hint. And I could not hear her. Like, she was so quiet because she obviously didn't want anyone else to hear. So I'm trying to be like, what? And I'm trying to not be obvious about it. And then that's when I start to talk to Laura and I was like, they're coming for me. And she's like, I don't think they are. I don't think. And I was like, babes, they're coming for me. I'm like, look at everyone. Like, I told her, I was like, look around. And we looked at Kate and Morgan. She tried to talk to Kate and Morgan. Kate's like, they're both like this. And we look at everyone. And then we start, like, I was obviously listening to the conversation earlier and I still had a really weird feeling. But then listening more into what people were replying to JLP, I was like, oh my God, yeah, no, they're coming for me. Like, this is like, you can be coy with your responses and sort of give a general response. But if Zara's saying and AJ's saying something that it feels like it really fits me, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, like they're coming for me. I honestly, at that point, because I was so worried about myself, I wasn't worried about Laura. I wasn't worried about the split because I still, for some reason, thought they would split on someone else. I don't know why. I wasn't even thinking about the split. I was like, either I didn't think there was going to be a split, I thought it was all just going to be on me, or that the split wasn't on Laura. So I'm like, I was shook when Laura's name came out. Like, I was so confused because I thought we had at least got Kristen, um, and someone else to come on board with us. So at least it was going to be 4 votes on AJ. So I still thought, even with me playing my idol, I still thought AJ was going home. So that was like devastating. Like, it was an extra layer of deception on top of that. And I mean, I should have been aware of it. I should have been aware that there was going to be a split, but because I thought I had enough people on my side, I still thought AJ was going home, even with them putting the majority on me.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's very. That's too harsh on yourself. I mean, in the moment to try and work out what numbers you don't have, you're being told your reality is completely different.
Yeah.
To try and work out what the real reality is in the moment is very, very hard. I mean, I thought it was. You got it very quickly at the point where you're saying, as Laura goes, like it was everyone.
Yeah.
And you're interpreting that very quickly. I think when Karen tells you that, you must assume Karen's with you. Like, how did you feel about the fact that she had voted against your side, against you even, right? Like, she voted
Oh
for
yeah.
you and then told you to play the idol. How did you take that?
No, I knew that if she was telling me, I knew she wasn't going to be voting. Like, I knew she was going to vote
Okay.
for me. And Karen had a very funny way of writing, so she did a little cursive and she did her 2 X's. And I remember seeing hers come out, and I nudged her and like kind of like giggled like at the same time because I was like, you voted for me. So I knew that if she was telling me and she wasn't looking at me and she was making it very obvious that this can't be seen as a thing, that she was still going to be on board with the graduates, and she was going to have to do what she was going to do, to save herself but also save me, which is why when we do get back to camp and I don't out her at all. So we have a conversation where she's like, no one knows. And I was like, I know, that's fine. And we have a big conversation with the whole group. And they're like, Logan, how'd you know? And I was like, just had a bad feeling. I was listening to you guys at Tribal and I just had a really off feeling. And I even tried to say that when I was going up to give up my idol, because I didn't want to make it look like I was outing Karen, because I was like, okay, there's a reason why she's telling me. Okay, I need to keep her safe. So I'm even saying, like, when I go up, I'm like, I'm not 100% sure, but I just have a weird feeling. Like, I was really amping up, like, this is based on a feeling, like, this is just a hunch and I'm just want to be safe right now. So when we do get back to camp and everyone's like, how did you know, Logan? I did not throw Karen under the bus at all. I refused to do that. I mean, AJ was probably a little bit suspicious, but no one had any concrete proof. Karen and I both didn't tell anyone until I told AJ and um, AJ and Kristen and Kaylin at the Lamb Reward. So no one actually knew that Karen had told me, confirmed at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, if you think you have Kate and Morgan and Kristen and Laura, then they can't split. So that's why, losing Laura there, I'm sure is really painful. What's happening with you here? Like, what are the feelings here? You've lost Laura, you've lost your idol. The next vote is going to be the twist.
Mm-hmm.
We also think, is this the one where you get the phone call home? This is the non-auction as well.
Uh,
So
yeah,
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 this
yeah.
is,
So,
I'm sure a good day for it, a tough day. Yeah. Well, firstly, like, yeah, what was the emotions at that point?
so oh gosh, coming back, I just was in shock for a while, and I think the hard thing is the time it takes to get back to from tribal council until you can have a chat and stuff like that. There is a decent chunk of time that goes past, so you kind of sat with your thoughts in your head, and you're trying to think of what went wrong, who flipped, or like, well, obviously everyone flipped, but why did they flip and what was the reasoning? And you just want to get back to camp and talk to everyone. You just want to say what happened, what was the reason. Like, if it was just to get out a threat, like, that's fine, but there was something that felt like that it wasn't just about that. There was something that felt a tiny bit, I don't want to say personal, but more of a, rather than a gameplay thing, rather more of an annoyance thing. So I just wanted to get to the bottom of that. And yeah, getting back to camp, obviously the boys were just about, yep, it was a threat thing. And for them, there was a duo with you and Laura, and that was threatening or scary or whatever it was. But then with the girls, it was, yeah, the conversations that were with AJ and Miles last night, didn't like the way that they were conducted, and this sort of alliance that you brought up, I didn't know about, or like the girls were saying they didn't know about. And they weren't comfortable being like having it said that they were a part of an alliance that they didn't know about. So that really, yeah, put a bad taste in their mouth. So I just really wanted to get to the bottom of it when I came back, and hearing all this stuff that I had no idea that they were feeling like or hearing. It was really hard because I was trying to defend myself, but I was like a kicked puppy at the time. I was devastated. And you honestly feel like you don't have a friend in the world. You know, every single person there knew the plan except for you. And they decided that I was a bigger threat or a bigger annoyance than AJ, the biggest game player of the season. And that was the vote was going. And they were still happy to take me out and think that like, I was a bigger problem than AJ. And I was like, it baffled me. I was like, we had the numbers finally to take out the most strategic, the most manipulative person at this game who, and that's not meant to be said in a bad way. Like, it's incredible what he did. Like, I have so much props for AJ's game. Like, but the fact was he was so manipulative, and that was why he was so good at the game. And he was so good at working people. And I was like, we finally have the numbers to do this, and you target me instead. I was like, why? It didn't make sense to me. But that's how good AJ's game was as well. The fact that he could switch it to show the girls, okay, someone that you've worked with that has proved their alliance to you, I'm going to immediately take that away and say, yep, she's the biggest threat. And they jumped on board, and he charmed them, and he made them want to work with him, which was crazy. He was so good at it. It was frustrating.
Yeah, I understand it's a compliment, but there is something very funny about, like, look, you can vote for me, you can stand on my ally, you can make me burn my idol, but I draw the line at being below AJ. Okay, so yeah, there's something there. I mean, yeah, this was, I'm sure, the best time to get the phone call home. Did that kind of fuel you for? I mean, you're about to go to Baron, so that is tough to be sent to Baron as well. But was this phone call home better than a pickle for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had been dying for my letters. I think the whole Braun 2.0, every time we did a reward challenge, there was a thought in my brain, maybe there'll be the secret letters when we get back if we win. So anytime we didn't win, I was like, it was like a kick in the guts. I was, obviously my name had come up heaps, and all you want to do when your back's against the wall is talk to the people that bring you comfort. That's obviously my husband and my kids. So um, that next day, after nearly being voted out, it was the one voice I needed to hear. And I mean, I'd been replaying his voice in my head over and over so much that I could have been like put in a mental institution because I felt like I was going insane. But hearing his voice and knowing that exactly what I thought he was going to tell me, he did, and it was so reassuring. It was so great, and it was the perfect reward for me. I didn't really care about the food at that stage. I mean, I think Kaylin and I were the two that were the least rewarded out of everyone there. So I was happy with rice and beans. Like, it didn't really bother me. Anytime we did have rewards, though, it was weird. The next day you'd be more hungry because you'd eaten more and your tummy had grown a little bit. So I was actually okay with not getting food a lot of the time. But yeah, that getting that call home was everything at that point. But then obviously going into Baron that night, I was like, oh my god, guys, again. You're saying that you're breaking up the buddies, but you're still going for me. This is something showing here. This is obvious, guys. There's no one picking this up. You're going after the buddies, but my buddy's gone and you're still going for me. Is that not showing anything to anybody? Like, let's be real.
Did you walk into that tribal council thinking you were going home? Because we saw that there are a lot of kind of names. Karen had been a name. Miles was protecting Karen. There'd been a hope to maybe go for like a Kate and Morgan that some people were interested in. Kate was going to win immunity as well. You kind of become a unanimous kind of compromise around the board. Were you aware of the fact that that was tricky? And what were you hoping would happen at the best case scenario in that tribal council before it gets to the twist?
No, so I wasn't aware that my name was actually out there. So I had spent the entire day talking to everyone, and I think AJ commented was like, "Why is she talking to everyone? That's not helpful or something." And I was like, everyone came up to me. Like, I think I pulled maybe one or two people to just clarify a few things, but everyone had come up to me separately and wanted to talk to me. So I was kind of in with everyone about like getting moving forward, and I could be a number and all that kind of stuff. And even on the really big conversations, like, I'd see everyone in a big group and I'd be like, oh, is it okay if I come in? And like, usually, like, they'd be like, no, blah blah blah. Like, when you're obviously on the outs, like, they're very much okay with being brazen about no, we're just having a quick conversation. We'll talk to you in a minute. But they were straight up like, yeah, everyone was like, yeah, come in, like, and we'll talk. And I was like, look, if I'm the vote, like, I'm the vote, like, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm trying my hardest to not be the vote. But they were very inclusive with me in the conversations, and it didn't change to me until like the very last minute. So I think it was Miles or AJ. I can't remember who changed it to me at the last minute. But it was I was safe pretty much that whole scramble until they changed it at the end. So that was really frustrating for me because I didn't know about that. And I mean, I guess I'm grateful I was saved by the twist, but I can't even remember who we were going for. I knew it was Kate until she won immunity, but I can't remember who the backup vote was going on. Um, but I was,
Either like a Karen or a Morgan is what we saw,
yeah, I think it was meant to be Morgan.
depending on who
Yeah,
got their way.
I think it was
Right.
Morgan. So yeah, it would have depended if the girls, like Karen and Zara, if they had have gone with the me plan, which because Karen had already saved me, I don't know that I would have gotten over the line with them. I'm not sure how it would have panned out if yeah, if I was actually the vote and it was an actual vote out. So I'm not exactly sure how it would have panned out. Apparently, according to AJ and Miles, it was going to be me. I've tried to chat to them after the show, but I'm not sure where everyone else lay with that. So not 100% sure. I know the girls like Morgan and Kate were definitely voting for me. Because they had told me when I was really upset about Baron Camp, that they're like, just when they walked off, they're like, just be grateful you've been given another chance. So they were obviously voting for me. So I was like, thanks. I mean, just I was like, I've already,
Yeah.
I'm so down, and I've been working my hardest. You don't like. I just thought at that stage, like, it's like you don't need to lie at that stage. Like, I didn't have an idol. We don't have time to find an idol. I don't have any advantages. You guys know that. I am literally just like a kicked puppy in the crying rain, like in the pouring rain. And you didn't need to include me in the conversations. You didn't need to, like, when Paulie was on the bottom, people didn't include him. And so he kind of knew that he was still on the chopping block, and he was just kind of made peace with it. But it was like all day everyone had given me this hope. Like, everyone wanted to talk to me. Everyone was including me. They'd all given me this hope. Like, don't worry, it's not you. Like, it's fine. And I was like, why'd you need to do that to me? Like, I'm already so down. Like, I've already had like the worst few days out here. And now you're giving me hope, and then you were just going to backstab me again. Like, you didn't need to blindside me. There was no, like, I didn't have anything to work with there. Like, I was going to be the obvious vote. So, yeah, when the Baron twist happened, I was grateful for being saved, but also it started to piss down rain. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh, just send me home. Just, I was so over it. And I'm like, I'm grateful that we did have the twist so that I could sort of get my head straight again. But yeah, it was not a fun vote either. And I was just like, it was just, yeah, it was deflating. It was deflating.
Especially because you've been voted into Baron. You know, like the other three who picked the Rock are going to go to Baron, and that sucks in and of itself. And I think Miles spoke about like even just being like so depleted from that, but also you get sent there. You know, which we see how upset Paulie was about that. I think maybe you didn't get the really sad music with how you felt about it, but you're going to go like on the revote with AJ as well. So yeah, I mean, at that point, this has been a really rough couple of days, surely at this point, to get sent to Baron like that, let alone after everything that's happened.
Yeah, it was really rough. And I mean, I think this is what like helped Paulie as well, because he realized that yes, Miles has saved me a few tribals ago, but I'm not a part of that alliance. And this is when I was really trying to get Paulie together, because I was like, they've out of everyone, they've voted you straight away. Like, even after me, like, who was meant to be the vote apparently tonight, and you were in on that vote. And like, come on, like, this is, it's getting ridiculous of how easily everyone is trusting what AJ is saying, and how easily they're moving around him, and it's infuriating. So that Baron vote was, yeah, it was depleting, it was devastating, it was horrible, and it was also like when I started to realize how much Kalen was not on my side at all, because I tried so hard with him. And I think that's when we're having a conversation saying, did you put my name down? Because all that scramble, I'm talking to him saying, we have to keep AJ and Miles apart. Like, they're the two that are causing this chaos. And he was like the way Kalen talks to you when you're telling him about strategy, he's looking at you going, yes, everything, yes, absolutely. And then he just does something else. So it is really hard to know, because sometimes he would do it and he would vote with you. So then him giving you that um, same sort of vibe and then voting against you, you're like, where do I stand with this boy? I don't understand it. So that was really difficult. But yeah, so I have that conversation with Kaylin afterwards, and I was like, "Did you vote for me?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm trying to balance." And I was like, "I didn't ask that. I didn't. I just want to know yes or no." And he's like, "Yes." And I was like, "Okay, cool. That's just. I just need to know where I stand with you, and that's now I know." So yeah, heading to Barron was not fun. I had a bit of a meltdown after that, just because I just felt so empty. And then, like, obviously hearing my husband's voice that day, feeling that sense of being close to home, and then sort of being kicked in the guts again. It was just like I was running on empty, and then going into a cyclone with no shelter and no fire and no food, and we knew we were going to be there for just less than 2 days. I was exhausted and just mentally drained.
What had been your perspective on voting AJ there? Was it just out of please leave me alone or like just out of frustration at that point?
No, so the perspective was that we needed to separate AJ and Miles from being on the same tribe together for 2 days, where they could be alone. And obviously, Kate was taking Morgan, so we wanted to keep AJ away from Kate and Morgan. That was the idea. We obviously wanted to split
Right.
up AJ and Miles, but it was most important that we kept AJ away from those two girls because we could see very easily how much he was getting in their heads. Um, and yeah, that was the idea. I can't remember who voted my way. I know that Karen did. I think Zara did. I can't remember.
It was Kristen. I have it here, because this one always confuses me, but it was
Yeah,
the first initial one was you. Actually, the next three boots, Paulie, Karen, and you. And then when you're not voting on the second one because you're the tie, Kristen flips over.
yeah,
So that kind of gives a sense
yeah,
of
yeah.
who's in with that.
So yes, we
Yeah.
knew that
Um,
obviously Zara didn't vote my way, and that showed us how close that Zara was with AJ as well.
Yeah, Zara is such an interesting one because I feel like that divide and how much more she's with AJ really kind of hurts your possible chances of doing something with Karen. And I spoke about this with Karen about her being pulled between those two sides, which we'll definitely talk about when we get to this Karen vote. But at Baron, obviously, this is a big vote where Miles has seemed to be kind of in some sort of power with AJ, and then it's going to be like a unanimous decision on both sides. We're just like we're going for Miles. So what do you kind of attribute this like it was like the, and there's I kind of get it now. I get like AJ was putting it out there. I get like other targets were off the board. I think the twist is a big part of that. Miles, usually a juicy target, but this was definitely confusing watching it. And I think I don't actually know. I mean, I do actually blame the show for not showing AJ's part in it, but I do also think it's quite a complex thing where he's going to be a target and then immediately not a target after he plays the idol. So what do you kind of attribute the Miles heat at this point to, and then how he just like escapes it immediately after when he saves himself?
Yeah, so I think obviously the people that we had on Baron with us were myself, Miles, Kaylin, Kristen, and Paulie. So Paulie was feeling kicked down by the fact that Miles had saved him and then immediately sent him to Baron, which worked well in my favor. And then Kristen was not feeling comfortable sort of with that alliance and didn't like the sneakiness of it. And then we had Kaylin there, who pretty much the whole of Baron, all of us are trying to convince Kaylin to flip and make a big move. And we're literally the entire day, all we're talking to Kaylin about is like, okay, you've got all these, or you're going to have a run for immunities. You've already done a few immunities. Oh, hang on, no, he hadn't had immunities by this stage. Um, yeah, no, only had one. So I was saying you've got an immunity. You can probably get more immunities. But at the end of the day, right now your game's being dictated by AJ and Miles. So you were running back to them and you were doing what they say. And Paulie was up front with it. It's like you do, like you voted for me, but you just do what you're told and you do what you're told to people. And this is when we really started to feel like there was like more of an uprising. We kept calling it this uprising of the bottoms, of people on the bottom, that we really wanted to take back our power in the game and work together. And we pushed Kaylin so hard, like on these days. And we're like, you don't need to flip against AJ, but you need to do something and start putting moves on your resume. You need to start doing something. And we are here. We are willing participants to work with you. And you don't need to completely flip, but you need to do something for yourself. Because if you get to the end and you've done nothing for yourself, it's not going to work out well. No one's going to respect the fact that you've just gone back and whispered information back and forth. We want to you people want to see that you've taken the information you've been given and you've done something with it yourself. So we pushed Kaylin so hard, and I remember bringing up AJ's name at one point, and he was like immediately backed off. He's like, no, I can't do that. And I was like, looked at Paulie, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this is it's hard to get through to him. But he was on board with the Miles vote. It was like a consensus we had over there that Miles was going to be the vote. But then obviously he goes and tells Miles as well, that he's a bit in trouble, because he just does. Kaylin had this. I don't know how to describe it. I love him so much. I love him so dearly. But he had this thing where he had this safety net of the other two boys, and I think in a way the women scared him. I'm not sure, like, that it was like this powerful woman element of we knew our own minds and we're strong with our opinions and we can fight with each other and blah blah blah. And he's such like a quiet, reserved person in a way that I think the women terrified him in some respects. So he had this safety and this comfort with the two boys, and so he'd always run back to them, and that was really really infuriating to watch because we were all on Kaylin's side a lot of the time. We really wanted him to show us what he could do, and unfortunately he didn't. But Miles was the consensus going forward from that. And I think what really put the nail in the coffin was when Miles came up to me and told me he had an idol, which I had already picked up from context clues because Miles has a big mouth. But I went back and I told Kaylin and Kristen, and I said, Miles has an idol. And I had already told Kaylin before that I believed Miles had an idol, and he was like, no, he couldn't possibly have one. And I was like, you've got to believe me. I was like, there's so much context around this. The things that he said to me, he's got an idol, trust me. And he just wouldn't buy it. But then the fact that I came back and I was like, he's just told me, like, in person, and it finally switched over to Kaylin. That's like, okay, well, he hasn't showed me that, like, he has an idol, so we can't trust that. And then that's when it all switches over to Paulie because trying to save ourselves and all that kind of stuff. But I really put in the effort to make that a 3 because I knew everyone else was going on Miles and Miles was going on Kristen. So I knew that Kristen, myself, and Kaylin's vote was going to be really, really important, and that was going to be who we sent home. So I worked really hard to get those 3 to vote for Paulie. Paulie went home on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if Paulie votes with Miles for Kristen, then you're the swing voter on the split there. So your 3 are important. I mean, everyone has a different version of reality, as we said, and all of them can be true. In some, that's what is objective truth is kind of the theme of the deep dives. Actually, we do want to tagline the deep dives as such, like Trans Survivor Deep Dives, what is objective truth? That's kind of the series name in my mind. I'm not that I think that everyone's is so different. Actually, I don't think people hugely contradict each other. It's just like, again, like all different kind of flavors of the story.
Yeah.
But I think like one of the biggest things is like Karen like really saw herself like not helping you here, but like Karen saw this, I think, as an investment in you, and that she thinks she's a big part of getting the split off you. You see that very much as well, Move, and we spoke about this in the exit interview. And you're going to target Karen next. So did you see any kind of investment there in what she put? I mean, obviously she tells you about the idol, which has its pros and cons in terms of like, will she save me? And you were grateful for that. But like, she also did it last minute. She still voted for you. And then here, this was like a big one, I think, for her in terms of saving you. That's not going to go a long way because you are going to turn on her next. Did you not see any of that? Or did you see just more like what you were doing here to get the split off yourself?
I did not see any of that. So basically, what we got told was that all 5 of them on the bounty tribe were going for Miles. And I had come up to Karen and I'd asked her, are you guys putting a split? Where is it going? I was like, is it going on me? And she gave me nada. She gave me whispers of information. And I was like, we're alone by ourselves. I was like, Karen, you've got to tell me, like, I need to be able to take something that I can trust and run with that. If you're giving me little bits of, like, I need to take control of my own game. I can't be relying on a whisper that you've said to keep my mouth shut and keep myself, like, I need concrete information here. And she just wasn't giving me that. I think there's obviously the talks of the split that they had at Bounty, that my name must have come up because I remember going back to after Miles had told me about his idol, and I went up to Morgan and I told Morgan that Miles has an idol, and she's like, oh, okay, well, the split was going to be on you, but I'll take my split off you so you won't get a vote. Like, you won't have your name pulled out. And I was like, okay, thank you, appreciate that. So there was obviously conversation about me being the split, but I had not heard any of that. And the only time I heard my name being the split was when Morgan had said, I'll take my vote off you for the split. And I was so confused. I was like, why am I the split? But whatever, that's fine. So Karen didn't tell me that I was the split. She didn't give me any of that information. And I think that's what really, really messed us up, because Karen was probably working really hard in the background to switch things off or change things around. But she wasn't giving me that information. So, as far as I knew, she wasn't on my side. She wasn't helping me. She wasn't doing anything. I couldn't see any of her other conversations. So, the lack of communication between us is what was our downfall in a way, because I just saw her as someone that saved me for that time being, but then went back to the main group and wouldn't work with me or didn't want to be seen to be working with me. And that was really impacting our relationship moving forward. So, yeah, I had no idea that she'd taken a split off me. I thought I'd taken it off myself by telling Morgan and Morgan taking it off me, because the only person that ended up writing my name down was Paulie. So I didn't see Karen helping me at that stage at all. She obviously did, but it wasn't clear to me at all.
Yeah. So Miles has, come to you with this Kristen vote. Clearly, that's not a good vote for you.
Mhm.
Not something you would want to do as well. And then Miles has been the target. Like, how does the jungle rat evade the target coming back out of this, where you're gonna lead a Karen vote? But even in like the non part of that, like even the other part of that, it's like a Kate Morgan thing again. Was it just that they were available and they were juicier targets, or like how did you see Miles escaping this here when he'd been again like unanimously pretty much targeted by everyone at this point?
Yeah, look, it was a strange thing with, I don't know if happens on a lot of other seasons. I think it does, but um sometimes when you become the biggest vote and you escape with your life, it's like immediately your threat level is decreased and you're not the number one target anymore. Like, it is a strange thing. You saw it happen with Paulie, where he was targeted and nearly voted out by the entire tribe, and he still lost like 3 or 4 more votes. Like, it's insane how easily the threat level shifts with people. So Miles being the threat there and playing his idol, as soon as he plays his idol, it's like, okay, you've taken that power away from him and he's back to the bottom, or he's back to rumbling around and trying to figure out a different plan. And his threat level was just immediately reduced, which is a silly thing to actually think about. But when you're in the game, that's just how you see it. Like, you're okay, you've taken away that advantage and everyone knows that you're a threat. So you're now on the bottom and people are trying to work out different plans and take out the next biggest threat. And it's probably not the smartest way to play, but it's just what happens out there sometimes when people, yeah, play their idol or get away without the
Mm.
vote. Yeah, the threat just decreases on them, and your attention shifts to someone else a lot of the time. Unfortunately, that was never me. The threat was on me though.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think that there becomes like a meta and a culture of the season. Like with Paulie, like everything broke up, but then it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy where that meta is reinforced. Like with Paulie, then he does survive, and then we have a culture where it's like you have maybe you take your licks, but then you like move on, and with you, obviously there was this kind of persistent target, but you still get through many other rounds through like kind of scrapping through,
Yeah.
and that only at that point when Miles was being targeted over you at Baron, now that is also playing out where you had been the target and now you're not, and now the meta just exists. So when Miles gets to it, it's like, but now what we do, because we've decided we do it, and now we're going to do it because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, is like move on from Miles. I do think the twist and like AJ was doing stuff as well, to get stuff off Miles, but that was a hard one to read as a viewer, even if they had edited it well, which they did not. So that was a tricky couple of episodes as well. But yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of good work there um, to make Paulie the split and to have enough votes to get through that in a tricky spot on Baron when there's only a few people. There's 4 targets who, like, if you think that was really impressive because you've been at the bottom,
Yeah.
there's 4 targets because Mars is going to be immune as well. Kaylin, no one's ever voting for Kaylin. Kristen's been like everyone, like Mars is going for Kristen, but like everyone else has been. And then like you and Paulie, like that was a dicey spot. And like there's a lot of good work to just defensively survive at that point and get votes onto another target to survive through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was the thing that, I mean, we have seen, like, I did have a really, really good social game in a lot of ways. And I think it was really shown there how well versed I was in the social game, where there was probably 2 potential targets and I worked my ass off to secure Kaylin and Kristen's vote to make sure that they didn't send me home. And they could have easily sent me home. But it's the way that I had interacted with them and the proof that I had given them, and sort of turned Paulie into the bad guy there, and the person that you couldn't trust. And I'm coming to you and I'm giving you all the information, and your name's out there, Kristen. So I'm not voting for you, but your name's out there. Go talk to him and he won't tell you your name's out there because you can trust me and you can't
Yeah.
trust him. So that was a lot of what I always put into sort of the groundwork with my alliances out there. And I think that's also why I was targeted a bit, was because I did have those really good social connections. Um, but that's okay. That's all right. I mean, it got me through far enough. I wish it got me through further, and I wish I could have convinced a few more, but that's just not the way that it panned out for me.
Well, one of those connections was Cara, and I know there was a miscommunication, but like, yeah, you had a battle of relationships where she was advocating for you more than you knew, and now she's going to be your target. So I'd love to get to this round because this round is the berries. It's a move that you immediately claim in taking out Karen. Um, how does the berries happen? Like an alliance with AJ? What is happening here, Logan?
Oh
Surely not.
gosh.
Like, what?
No.
Please tell me what's going on
So
here.
this is off the back of that vote. That's off the back of the Paulie vote, when I really wanted to work with Kaylin and Kristen. And I just proved to them that they can trust me. I've given them their information on Miles. They've voted with me. They could have sent me home. So I'm feeling like I'm protected in that sort of three with them. And then obviously we go to the Lamb Reward and it's got those three there. And AJ is one of the biggest sort of players in this game. And I'm trying to shift the target, make sure it's still not on me. My ultimate goal was to get out Zara in this situation, but I knew that that wasn't really palatable to AJ. So creating this Barriers Alliance, putting Karen's name out there, was what was going to fracture the graduates. And I knew that. So if I fractured the graduates, it means I could take Kaylin away and I could keep Kristen in with me and I could keep moving forward, and hopefully work with the girls to get a bit further on. So putting out Karen's name was strategic to put the boys' votes on Karen and switch up the girls' votes to Zara. And it obviously didn't pan out that way and it got a bit convoluted towards the end. But that was the initial plan. But then obviously the more you spoke about it, the more I was like, actually, Karen might be the best plan here. Karen, I can see her winning. She's not giving me enough information. I don't know if I can trust her. But at the end of the day, I really did just want Zara gone. And there is a conversation I did have with Kristen, I think I spoke about last time, where we're thinking about flipping the vote or trying to flip the vote to the girls and say, hey, let's actually just put the numbers on Zara. And at that stage, the girls weren't happy with Zara either. So I knew that that was okay to go along with. And I just thought in that potential moment, if I flip onto Zara, and Khan comes back and she doesn't know about it, there could be this sort of anger coming back and a frustration. But then I could also use it to my advantage and say, hey, I saved you, like did the whole manipulation side of it, like it was going to be you, and I flipped it onto this and blah blah blah, and then Kristen ends up blowing it up. And there was still an element of going into tribal and thinking, do we switch it onto Zara? Is Zara the right vote here? And then Karen obviously had her tribal circus and kind of really cemented the vote there, unfortunately. But yeah, there was a huge element that we could go in there and switch it to Zara, which is ultimately what my plan was. But at the end of the day, getting either Zara or Karen out still broke up the graduates. And Zara and Karen hadn't been fully open with me and honest and communicating well. So as much as it looked like she had my back, or she did have my back, it wasn't communicated to me at all. So at this point, I'm thinking that she could potentially still be an enemy. So it was really hard to navigate that vote.
Yeah, I think I see the issues is that firstly, Zara, like in a perfect world, what I wanted to happen was that you work with Karen and Zara
Yeah.
and Kristen come over the top on a split for the reasons of Karen, she had been investing in you and it hadn't been communicated well enough. And like there were parts of that weren't seen. But like the other important part about Karen is like Karen's taking shots at AJ. And that is a rarity in this season that I feel like, was like solid gold out there for someone like you who was wanting to do that because so few people were doing that. So I think like attaching to Karen, like getting Karen out helped AJ because she was actually trying to get at AJ, which was so rare. So like that kind of enabled AJ. I think as well. So in my perfect world, that's happening. But then again, there's been miscommunication with Karen. And then this fracture with Zara makes things so tricky because like yeah, Zara should do this, and to save Kayn, she certainly should. And I kind of think that Zara was kind of at the bottom of that for a lot of it. I know she was super important to AJ. Like now, like hearing as well how close she was, like especially to like an AJ. Like she's never gonna do that really, but maybe for Kayn she will. Maybe that's like the one spot where maybe she will. And like I still think she should. You know, like I think that that's the group because I kind of see a power structure that doesn't involve Kayn and Zara. And like you do have Kristen. So like again, Kristen also is kind of drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit from AJ, but like maybe less than most in how high that bar is. Or how I guess low that bar is for people drinking the Kool-Aid. So that's kind of where I saw those numbers, but then it becomes very tricky because is Zara doing that? And like there's a miscommunication with Kayn, and like then they're becoming the targets. And I see where you're like, we'll break up the graduates, but I feel like Kayn had lost so much power to that point where she was like graduate adjacent at best.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was like an easy, not even like really a sacrifice for AJ because she's coming for AJ, but that's like an easy kind of more like superficial loss, like a shallow loss where it's like aesthetically we've lost a graduate. However, actually she was coming for me. She was like not a valuable graduate to me. So I see your perspective
Mhm.
of how that looks in those dynamics. But I think for me, like in a perfect world, truly, if like Zara's trying to save Kayn and Kayn's taking shots at AJ and you're want to take shots at AJ and Kristen can be pulled over more than most on AJ, even though it's trickier than it seemingly should be.
Yeah.
That to me is like the group, but I see how the fractures happen where that doesn't come together
Yeah.
to take the shot at AJ and so there's infighting and then I feel like then you're going to go home next. But like the power is kind of lost there where AJ still has so many other options and not enough people are like opposing him as you and Kayn were.
Yeah, I think at that tribal as well, like when Kayn pulls us aside, it was so enticing to flip the vote onto AJ, but the people that she pulled aside were the wrong people. She had the four right people, and she had Kaylin there, and Kaylin was never going on AJ.
Yes, Kaylin.
So he was never going
Yeah.
on AJ, and also we had to think about, okay, so if we still have Morgan and Kate in here, and this has caused this big scene, we know what they're like with big scenes. They don't like it, then what? Who knows how they're going to respond to this reaction? And I think there was a lot of like there was a bit of back and forth between Kayn and the girls that obviously this tribal is like an hour long and stuff, so you don't get to see all the little commentary, the little jabs and stuff here and there. So at that sort of point when she pulls us away, we know that yes, we could flip and do an AJ vote here, but what's the damage going to be like when we get back? Like, how do we then work this? And there's so much to think about in those split second judgments. And sometimes you just fall back on what's safe, on what the plan is, and you can see someone burning their own bridge. And realistically, when you look back and you watch it and you're like, oh, I should have done that. I should have actually, you know what, been like, you know what? Yes, Kayn, let's go. Let's team up and let's do this and let's take out AJ now. But just in that moment when everything is sort of exploding and you're seeing the reactions from other people and you're like, okay, you're trying to think about what's this going to look like when we get back to camp and how is this going to affect me? And well, the boys can easily just say this was Logan's plan and like throw me under the bus, and then I'm going to be in trouble when I get back with Zara and Kayn, and that's going to put me straight on the bottom again. At least in this position, I felt like I had a bit of power with Kristen and Kaylin and could move forward with that. But that obviously just didn't work out that well for me in the end. So there's just a lot of sort of choices you have to make in those initial or those split second judgments there, that are really hard, because if sort of we got to talk about this at camp and it was me, Zara, Kayn, and Kristen, there's a huge
Yeah.
opportunity there to come back from that reward and say, hey, the boys are going on you, they're going to hit you now. But then it's also like, okay, well, if we say that to her at the camp, Zara could just easily go back to AJ and AJ be like, no, Logan said that. And there's so much room for people going back and forth. And it is really hard to pull off that kind of blindside when you don't have everyone wanting AJ out. Like that was when it was so difficult. The perfect shot was when Laura got voted out, and it wasn't taken then, and it wasn't going to be taken after that. I could see that so clearly that it wasn't going to be taken because he just had the numbers constantly. So Karen's vote, it was kind of a way of me getting out of the bottom and getting my own agency with Kristen and Kaylin. And yeah, protecting myself moving forward. And I knew that Kristen didn't want AJ around. And I honestly didn't understand AJ and Zara's full relationship. I knew that they were close, but their closeness was hidden pretty well. Like I knew that they were definitely very close out there, but it was not obvious about how ride or die they were for each other. And I think that's also a mistake that was made. But the thing is, you make these mistakes because you're not aware of the relationships, and you can spend every day with these people, and they can be really hidden. So it is really hard to sort of make those judgments of, okay, let's go on this person now without having all the information, and you don't have all of it, and it could just backfire on you. So a lot of the time you're just trying to shift yourself into a better position to then take out who you want to actually take out, and it doesn't work out that well.
Yeah, if you guys can come over the top of the split on AJ, that's I think a perfect scenario where you're having to talk about it at camp with the four of you. However, is Zara doing that on AJ?
she
Maybe not. So it's like, okay, then if yeah.
She's not doing
I
that
mean,
for AJ if she has time. If she has time at camp to talk about the potential, she's going back to AJ. She's going back to Kaylin. She's going back to Miles, and she's talking about it and figuring out the plan, because that's what she does. She's so good at it. She knows where everyone's off voting. This was the only one she didn't know about, with good reason, obviously. So if we had to talk to her at camp, this wouldn't have gone through. It wouldn't, like the AJ vote would not go through. She was very protective of Karen, but she would have managed something and it could have flipped on me, because I was the one that put it out there. I was the one that asked, like, I was the one that said, okay, we're going this person, this person, this person on Karen, we're doing this on Zara. And this is why I claimed it as well, because you can talk as much as you want with your friends and whatever and say, oh, I want to get this person out next, or I'm thinking this person. But unless you get the soldiers in line to take someone out, that's not your plan. And I will stand by that, because no one else put it out there to get the proper numbers. AJ talked to Kaylin and Miles about it, but he needed Zara to get on board with that, or he needed the two girls, and they didn't want Karen gone at that stage. He needed to get other people in line, and I don't think Miles wanted Karen gone at that stage either. So he needed the right numbers, and he didn't have them at that stage, and he hadn't talked to enough people at that stage, and I was the one that put it out there and then got the numbers in line, and that's when it takes off. So that's why I'm sitting back there and saying, hey, this is my plan, because I've put it out into everyone, and I've put the numbers there, and I've said this person's voting for this person, and laid it all out. And that's what a plan is. That's how you execute it. So yeah.
yeah, I think like Zara and AJ's relationship was really missing from the edit, and I think I mean we know they were graduates together and like that, they were close, but I think that makes things really tricky because you're saying that time can screw things up, but
Yeah.
time is needed in the secrecy of coming over the top of the split. Maybe Zara will go, because Zara's being left out of the plan now, but like so, and Karen is at risk, so maybe Zara's wanting to go for like a Kate, but if you take out a Kate, then does AJ still come back with like a Morgan, a Miles, a Kaylin, a Zara still, and that's tricky if you're going to try and not do it on the top of a split and take in like a Miles. Like Miles isn't going for AJ, so again, is it just taking out a proxy for AJ where he still has so much power? Like the protection was so strong. I still think like keeping Karen in just to be in the war against AJ is the bet, but I do see how that's tricky because I think Zara should really be doing that, and I on AJ, I think that's a perfect plan. Like in like if you would in the game of chess, like I think I see that, but I don't think Zara is doing that on AJ. Like this was the most chance ever where I feel like she's out of the vote. Karen is the target. She's the split. And even then, and we even see, I think that she votes for Miles. So, and Miles should be like maybe be with you on something, not against AJ, but like in a group of people who've been at least on the bottom. And that's how I kind of see it in like a hierarchical kind of shot. And I just think that that's really, really tough. And mainly because like, are those people going to do it? Like probably not. So
Yeah.
it's a tough one, but you do get the vote onto Karen. What's your hope from there? Like, what are the numbers here? Where like obviously Kaylin immediately goes back with the guys. It's going to be this 4-4 split, and I think Kaden Morgan was almost like unforeseeably on your side. But what were you hoping would happen next?
Yeah, so my plan moving forward from this was that Zara was going to be on the outs, and sort of her relationship with AJ was going to be dented at least, because she wasn't informed of the vote. It was splitting up her buddy. That was what the hope was. I was hoping to move forward with Kristen, Kaylin, and the two girls. So I was really pushing for that sort of as a 5 to move forward, and then sort of hopefully take out Miles or AJ next. I didn't think I could get I don't think I could get AJ at the next vote with those numbers because of Kaylin. But if we got Miles, then the next vote I could have tried to convince sort of the girls that we need to take out AJ now, and this is when we move forward. Girl strong, like let's do it. Girl power, like that was like the idea of to try and get that through. And yeah, so that was kind of my plan, is to move forward with those five at that stage. And actually, it was working. It was doing really well until I got separated for the IKEA award. And what's it called, the AJ just takes control and says, who's going to be the most like obvious one to do something here, and who could flip on us. And I think the plan was actually still going to be Kate for a while there, until AJ kind of got his fingers in and started messing things up for me again. And yeah, I sort of came back to camp that next day, and I could just tell the shift had happened. Anytime I tried to talk to Kaylin, he was really um, dismissive, or like, yep, wasn't giving me information. I asked him, like, hey, are we still good with the plan? And I was like, what's the plan? He's like, oh, the same as yesterday. And I was like, what was it yesterday again? And he was like, oh, yeah, and I'm like, okay, so you're not on my side. All right, so this is looking like it's a 4-4. And it became really, really obvious straight away. And it was really disappointing as well, because I tried so hard with Kaylin. I tried so hard. And obviously I just shifted the target off my back, and I was hopeful that Zara would see like how easily those boys would flip on her, and how like all three of them flipped on her, like Miles, Kaylin, and AJ, and no one told her. And I mean, I was against Zara for a while there, so it was an obvious thing that I would flip against her at some stage. But she had these boys that were supposed to be her sort of solid rocks in the graduates, and they kept her out of the loop. So her flipping back to the boys was really, really disappointing as well. And I tried to be open and upfront with her when she said it was like, okay, the boys are taken out. And the reason I said, oh, it was my fault, like I orchestrated that, was because I wanted to take responsibility, and I wanted her to have sort of trust in me, and sort of make it look like the boys were the ones that were untrustworthy in that sense. Obviously, that didn't work out. And some things you don't have the best judgment call on, especially after a huge night of tribal, and it's been really draining. And then the time it takes to get back to camp, and then something is said, and you're trying to think of the best way to like continue game forward, and sometimes the things you say do the complete opposite of what you want them to do.
Yeah, Kaylin is such a death knell on so much of this. You know, like we see Karen investing in him. You've invested so much in him, and he's not going to be there. But I do think it was impressive to get Kate and Morgan to your side. What did you attribute that to? Because we had seen, that they had been much more with like AJ, and they're not voting for AJ here, they're voting for Zara. But still, like, this was like kind of the biggest separation we've seen, at least from like AJ's plans, for I think at least, I don't know, that I can think of right now. To this point, was Zara like as a target a big part of that it was like the four of you on Zara, or like what? And because then it becomes like, are you going to go to rocks for me? So like, did you see like how are you forming this group with them at this
Yeah.
point to try and like actually get something done?
So the Karen vote was a bit of a catalyst for it, because it sort of put us on the one side together of they were really not enjoying being around Zara at the time, and sort of united us for a common enemy at that stage. And then going into the IKEA reward, I obviously got some time alone with Morgan, which I hadn't really had much of, and sort of gave her all the information. I was like, look, this is what AJ's done. You and Morgan and you and Kate are meant to be the next vote. They're splitting it on you guys. That was the plan as of yesterday. That was going to be the plan 2 votes ago. Obviously, when I went to Baron, and I just told her everything that AJ and Miles and Kaylin had all been planning, and it was enough to rally her to be like, okay, no, we're sticking strong with this, like screw those boys kind of thing. And obviously having Morgan there, when we get back to camp, she's obviously got Kate in a lock, so we just needed to explain sort of similar things to Kate, and Morgan to say to Kate, trust me on this one. I've spoken to them for the past day. We're locked on this. This is what's going to happen. Kate was really unsure, obviously, because she'd spent that time over there, and AJ's still working on her and stuff. So getting Kate across was probably more of a bigger feat than getting Morgan across, because Kate hadn't been there to chat with me and do all that kind of stuff. So getting her across at that last minute when she didn't have all the information was more of the bigger feat. And I knew that they knew that we were going to potentially going to go for a tie. I didn't know that they were completely unaware of rocks, but I assumed that they didn't know what rocks was, so I didn't talk to them about rocks. And I just wanted to talk to Kristen, which I told you about in our last chat, that I really did want to just talk to Kristen and explain rocks, and explain that we just need one person to go against them, and the likelihood of them going home would be really significant, because now they've put themselves in this 4 block, and that 4 block has been there since day 8 or something of Brains Camp. And if they're 4 strong now, they're just going to pick us.
Graduate.
Yeah, they're graduating, and they
Yeah.
they they're just going to pick us off. And I couldn't. I was trying my hardest to just, I was like, look at this. They're going to pick us off one by one. As soon as I'm gone, it doesn't matter if it's me. It just means one of the 4 of us going against the 4 of them. It just means that we're going to go one by one. It doesn't matter which order. We're just going to go one by one. Do you really not want to go to rocks just for the sake of an extra day in the game or an extra 2 days in the game? Like, it's not going to make a difference because they are not splitting up. It might look like when they show on air that there is the possibility maybe down at 5, but they were so strong. They were so strong, and they just weren't breaking up. And they might have picked off 2 of us and then maybe worked with an extra one, but obviously the way it all worked out, it didn't happen. And that was really disappointing as well, because I was really hopeful when I did get voted out, that I was hopeful for the girls. I was like, okay, I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, and I hope they work with you, and I hope you guys get further and can do all that. But I really just saw it as they were just going to steamroll through us, and it was so disappointing that's the way it went. It would have been so cool to go to rocks, and I mean, obviously there was a what 60% chance that one of us on our side was going to go home compared to the 40% chance. I was like, but that's a 40% chance that we only have right now. I mean, it's not great odds, but the reality is one of us is going to go home tonight, and then the next night, and the next night, and the next night. Would you rather not just take 40% chance that maybe we can get one of them out and flip this on its head? So it was disappointing how
Yeah.
it did, but not much I can do about it. The girls weren't ready to go to rocks, and that's okay. That was their own game. I was never going to force them to go to rocks. I was never going to intimidate them and do any of those kind of things. That's just not who I am as a person. But I did fight really hard with logic. Obviously, only little bits do get shown on TV, because you don't want to just listen to me waffle, unlike this podcast, for like 20 minutes about the logics of rocks and stuff, and I just go over the same points over and over, and I'm trying to drill it into their heads, and I can just see sort of the light fading from their eyes of like, they're like, we're not doing this for you. Like they were like, that's scary, I could go out instead of you. Like, they want you out, they don't want me out, so why would I risk me for you, kind of thing. And I could see that the more I tried to give them logic, the more that they were just sort of backing away from that. And that's why I just kind of sit there and I'm like, it's okay. Like, I know you guys wanted to do this with me. I know you wanted to get Zara out tonight, and I know you wanted to fracture this. I know that you came together for me, and I'm so appreciative of that, but it's okay. Like, I get it that you're not going to risk your name for me. I'm not going to ask you to. I'll try and provide you all the logic of why you should, and I believe you should, but I'm not going to make you play. Like, I'm not going to force your hand. And I couldn't. There was nothing I could do. I tried to give them all the logic. I tried to explain it's 1, 2, 3 after this. And they thought they had more confidence that they could work with AJ, and that was their own prerogative. That's fine. If you think that you can work with AJ or Miles or anyone and move forward, then that's totally your own game. But I just couldn't see that happening, which is what I was trying to explain to them, and obviously it didn't happen. So, I mean, I was right. I didn't want to be right, but I was right.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've heard from like all the deep dives now, like how hard you did fight there. And I know we spoke in the X interview about maybe trying to just approach Kristen specifically about giving you rocks, but Kristen as well, like having spoken to her, like was getting snowed as well compared to Kaden Morgan as well. Like Kristen also thinks she can work with a Kaylin and an AJ, and that's
Yeah.
like a credit to the work that they're doing there to kind of manipulate that situation, which makes it really hard. Was it really evident to you going into that tribal council? Was it really evident to everyone that they were a 4? Like, was your best hope that they were splitting votes, or like
Yeah.
was there still like a hope that a Kaylin might be with you or something? Or, like, you knew it was like they're
No.
a 4, and if
We
they vote together, we're a 4-4.
we knew 100% that it was a 4-4. We were so confirmed that it was a 4-4. So we tried really hard at camp to pretend that Morgan and I were at odds, and that we had found something, or there was an advantage or whatever else. But we obviously, Miles finding the idol when we were away kind of like played into the fact that they're like, well, obviously they're not going to have another thing to find. So they didn't believe that we had an advantage or an idol or anything. I can't remember exactly what we tried to convince them of. But we tried really hard to convince them that Morgan and I weren't together, so that they could feel comfortable splitting, because they didn't think, we were trying to say that, yes, we're still with you on the Kate vote, and this is where our votes are going to go. So we were trying to get them to split on us so that we had the 4 to come over them, but they were not comfortable doing that, which, for good sense, good pick up by AJ, that he was like, no, we cannot split this vote, cannot afford to split this. And they were right, because we couldn't afford to split it either. There was no chance we were going to split it. But yeah, we knew coming in we had to be 4 strong for that. And I was just really hopeful it would pan out, but it didn't. But that's okay. Maybe I'll get another shot another time.
Yeah, well, what about this challenge? Because there was a bit of controversy around this challenge because I actually never asked AJ if he was throwing it, which is crazy because I did a 5 hour plus deep dive with him. I
Yeah.
don't know if you have any insight on this, but now it's irritating me that I didn't ask him. But I mean, AJ, like your fate is in AJ's hands, and some people did not like that. They're like, you should be
No,
able to earn your own
I
immunity at
didn't
a time
like
when
it
you're going to be
either.
in trouble.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I think this is my gripe with the season, or not the entire season, but when you get to individual immunity, it should be individual. There should be no one else should be controlling my fate. I've made it to merge. I've made it to the individual stage of this game. Why am I being put in a team with someone who wants me out? Like no, like he's.
Was AJ throwing it?
I thought he
Do
was.
we know?
I thought he was throwing it. He told me the night of his jury that he wasn't, but
Oh.
I don't know. He's also told me some things that weren't true and other things, so I'm not 100% sure. And I haven't asked him about it again. So maybe I should ask him. But it was like Morgan and I were pissed off because it was obvious. I think before we start, he was complaining about his knee was really sore, and then he was kind of laughing and not really moving very fast in the challenge. And I ended up picking up Zara myself at one point and like throwing her over the thing because I was like, "What are you doing? Like, you're so what are you? This is so slow. Like, you're not helping at all. Like." And it was like infuriating. Morgan and I were just like looking at each other and we're like, this is so obvious that he's throwing it. So he claimed to me after when he went to jury that he didn't throw it, but also this was after like 5 hours of him talking to everybody. So I don't know if that is true or not. So he said he didn't at the time, but that was 8 or 9 months ago. So I think maybe if we have a chat with him now, he might tell us a different story because it was very blatantly clear to me that something was afoot there, and that was really really frustrating for me because I mean it's an individual game. So at this point, there should be no interference of me winning an immunity idol. So there shouldn't have been a team challenge there. I mean, for a reward challenge, that's fine, but for an individual immunity, no, I hated that. It was infuriating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in the fact that people can beat gaming challenges because I care more about the strategies than the challenges. But I'm interested that production are like because it can screw over someone who is on the bottom, and that's not usually what production likes. So it
Yeah.
is an interesting production choice, definitely. And I hate myself for not asking AJ about this in the deep dive. You would think we would have covered every aspect of the game, but we probably could have all done 50-hour deep dives and still not covered. We could do, probably 5 hours a day at least on just every day of the game. So yeah, but like if this had gone through and say, you get the 40% and like a Miles goes or an AJ, whatever. What are your plans? Like, who are you looking to sit next to? If you did you at this point had you been on the bottom so long that you're even looking ahead to that, or like did you dare to dream of what an end game looks like for you, where you're in a good spot to win?
Yeah, I'll be so honest, I wasn't looking at the end here. I mean, I was fighting for my life.
Survival.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many days on merge, and I think the one thing that's different to me, that I'd spoken to a lot of people in the jury, even people that went out before me, that had said, "Oh yeah, this is what my final this and that looked like." And I was like, "You guys were making final things?" I was like, I was just trying to get through the next day and try and figure out, okay, the next two votes. I was like, I couldn't even possibly imagine a final three or a final two right now because I'm just trying to get through and trying to find some footing in this game. And it was really difficult to look forward, and I was just really focusing on the present at that time. So even looking now, I look at the sort of everyone that came after me, and I'm like, who would I have wanted to sit next to? I'm like, an obvious for me would want it to be to sit next to a Kristen or a Morgan. My game was clearly head and shoulders above theirs. No offense to them, love them, but in terms of the game and strategy and social play and physicality and stuff, it was above them. So I think I would have loved to take either of those to final two. But then you also have people like Zara, who was like, okay, she has played a really good game in this sense, but there's also people that she's really pissed off on the jury. So I was like, would I have a good chance against her? I was like, Miles, I don't think Miles or AJ could have beaten at all. Kaylin is someone who is like would be really hard. I feel like it would get to a split vote with being Kaylin, because there would be some people that would really really respect his physicality and his strength in challenges and stuff like that, and people that didn't like me on the jury, or didn't like my game. But yeah, I didn't really think about the final twos or the final threes at that stage because it was just too far ahead. I was like, I think I thought about it sort of at merge about who I'd like to be in the final six or an alliance or anything like that. But after my name was out there from what was it, day 31, there was no looking further than the next day in front of you. You just had to find your feet. And I was stumbling for the next 5 days, 5 or 6 days. What did I get to? Day 39. So 8 days, I was just stumbling around trying to find my feet. And yeah, I mean, I lasted an extra 7 days, an extra week out there, which was amazing. But yeah, I think my biggest regret is that I took out Karen when I feel like out of out of everyone left, I thought she was the most deserving, which breaks my heart a bit. I'm sorry, Karen. I love you so much.
Well, getting to the jury, we saw it was a spicy jury. There was a lot going on at Jury Villa. You got a lot from Laura of all people, which was yeah, kind of shocking watching it at Jury Villa. Was that like did it get better? Was it just that one night that sucked? And like how was it coming out of the game, having lost at that point, having had a really tough, week or so, as you said, and then coming out into this environment? Like what was your kind of mental state through that?
Yeah, I mean, I was not expecting that in Jury Villa at all. I mean, I think one of my best qualities is that I can have an argument or a fight or something, and as soon as it's resolved, it's like it's done, it's out of my brain. Like I'm a forgive, forget, move on kind of person, like immediately. So getting voted out, I was like, oh, okay, it's done. I knew there was going to be some questions that I had to answer regarding Karen. Paulie was probably going to be a little pissed off with me as well. But I was not expecting Laura to be pissed off at me at all. I was expecting her to like run at me with open arms, and then I was confused because I was like, is she mad at me for using my idol? But she wasn't. She wasn't mad at me at all. She was. I think there'd been a few whispers at jury that I had thrown her under the bus when I had what's it called when I'd come back from her vote out. So obviously with her vote out, back at camp and I'm asking all the questions of what happened and why did this happen and when they explained all this Six Alliance and this and that, and I was like, hang on, I didn't say that. I was like, Laura told me that. So I got that information from Laura. And I think when it came back to Drew Villa, people had said, oh, I'd thrown Laura under the bus because someone had made the comment, oh, we've voted the right person out tonight. And I was like, yeah, cool. Like, yeah, maybe you did. Maybe you voted the right person out. Obviously, like my best friend in the game, she's not the right person for me to vote out at all. But I then have to pander to the people there. I'm still in the game. So I still need to
Yeah.
go ahead and
That's a tale as old as time. I mean, I laugh about it every season that the person who just got voted out is like the worst person alive. Everyone does it. It's like
yeah,
they put us against each other, like they were manipulating me and I just couldn't see it. Like like I've laughed about this so much, especially in the last couple of seasons, because it's like whoever goes to the jury is just simply a villain, like, and that's what it has to be. Like it can't be me and they're not in the game. So like what doesn't really hurt them, does it?
yeah, so I think that was the whole thing. So obviously that conversation happened back at camp, but what got passed on to the jury was that I instigated the conversation or I said certain things that wasn't actually what was said. It was someone else that said it, and I confirmed it. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe that was right and stuff because I'm trying to protect my own ass. I'm still in the game, so I've got to save face. And I think Laura took offense to that because she is my bestie, and she's like, she was saying mean things about me, and I was like, babes, I wasn't. I swear to God. And I think that made the original jury frosty. Karen and I worked it out pretty quickly. We were fine pretty quickly. She was obviously pissed at me, and I've been trying to grovel to her for 9 months. And I was like, I'm so sorry. But yeah, Laura was the one that shocked me the most. And it was just, yeah, miscommunication about what actually happened. And I think her feelings just got a bit hurt there. And I just had to say, like, okay, you can trust me now, or you can wait 9 months until we watch it on TV and know that I didn't say those kind of things, or I would never talked about you in that kind of way. So yeah, that was a bit of a hard one, but the rest of the juries coming out of that were a lot better. Kristen's one, not as great, but Paulie just kind of had a bit of a bone to pick there. So I think what we're supposed to do in jury is let everyone air their grievances and kind of get it all out at the table, and then we get back to Jury Villa and everyone's just all kumbaya again. But it wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be. It was kind of a bit taxing. You're out of the game, but you still have to go back to the game and still have to put your head back in it. So it's kind of really hard to be in that half mindset where you just want to leave it. You just want to be like, okay, I'm done. I'm excited to be a part of it, and I'm excited to be able to still be in this position where I can choose the winner, and that's a really fun position to be in. But it's also like, I'm done. I just want to process and I want to debrief and I just want to get out of here and be like, okay, that's done. That part of my life's over. So it is really hard, sort of one foot in the door at that stage. But it was fun in some regards, but it was also taxing. It was a bit taxing. You feel like you're still
What was it like
mad when you got out.
What was it like watching it like some of these moves. Like the big one is like the 2-1-1-1 vote. How do you feel like the jury reacted to that and to Zara's decision there to take out Kate?
That was crazy. Like that was crazy viewing. I was like, I have front row seats to my favorite show in the whole world. This is so fun. But I was shook. Like, and like we're not supposed to like say stuff or make big facial, but I could not help it. I was like, oh my days, like this is crazy. Um, and yeah, when it kept to the four people voting for a separate person, I was like, oh my god, what is going to happen? It's coming down to one person's vote. I was like, how have they done this? Like who has done this? Like I could not figure it out because AJ looked shocked, Miles looked shocked, Kaylin looked shocked. I was like, who is in charge of this vote? I could not figure it out. And then obviously Kate gets voted out, and she has a different story when she comes back to Jury Villa, and she had the wrong information. So she said this person voted for this person, blah blah blah, and she had it all twisted as well. So even they were confused out there. We were confused. But it was great viewing. It was fun. It was like a very live kind of tribal. It was like very explosive and fun. And yeah, it was exciting to watch, but it was very confusing. It was very, very confusing. And we didn't have the right answer until I think Zara came back. Yeah, the next tribal when Zara came. So we didn't know actually what had happened properly because Kate was like, yeah, I think this is what happened, but I'm not 100% sure. And I was like, no, AJ couldn't have voted for that because he draws his ugly little hearts on the ones and he put it on someone else. So yeah, we were all a bit confused.
How are you and the jury looking at like that final five? Like you described, who you'd want to sit next to, like AJ and Miles possibly being an issue, Kaylin having, some potential there, Zara maybe being someone better to sit next to. Where did Kate fall into that? What about, and like Zara, once you got the information, had you got the information if she was still in the game about the 2-1-1-1 on Kate? What do you think like Zara's chances were against like a Kate or a Kaylin? Like where did the finalists sit for you and in your mind the jury on winner potential and like the good matchups for any of them?
Yeah, look, I mean, I adore Kate, and we were all rooting for her on the jury. We were hoping that she would get further, but in terms of her game, I guess we looked at the fact that there was four brains there and one brawn, and the brains had been playing since day one, and the brawns kind of had a little bit of a 2 week vacation, so she had to play catch up and um, yeah, her strategy wasn't as on point, and the fact that she was really easily manipulated by AJ and kind of went with the votes, it wasn't fully in her favor. So, as much as we didn't want Kate to go out at 5, we kind of knew that those 4 stronger players were going further, and that was great for the game in the sense of you want the best people at the end. But Kate's a lovely, lovely person, and she was a great game player. But I think yeah, at 5, it probably was her time to go. It was just unfortunate. Um, and then looking sort of at the top 4, I mean, I guess my rank is I would always put AJ at the top of that 4. I think he played the best game. Um, I think he deserves so much credit. Like he was chaotic and frustrating to be around, and I wanted to bang my head against the wall so many times. But he was able to make these huge moves, and still no one targeted him. He didn't leave until final 3. That is insane. He didn't have a single immunity or an idol in merge, and you still made it all the way to final 3 with these insane chaotic moves. And he was just brazen in your face, and that is incredible. He twisted so many truths out there and people just believed him. He charmed over that many people. He was incredible. So AJ, hands down to me, was my winner out of that top 4. It was a little bit split between Miles and Zara after that. Um, just purely because I didn't see a lot of Zara's game. Like Miles, you could see his game, but Zara's was a bit more quiet and it was a bit more behind closed doors. And I was really hoping to see Zara in the final 2 so I could hear all about it. I just wanted her to explain her game, and I wanted to see why she made those moves and tell everyone, like, yes, I did this and I did this, and it was behind your back, and that led to this move, and I did that. I was really hoping, and like as a lawyer, I knew she would kill it. Like I knew she would kill that pitch, and I was really, really hoping for it. So I was devastated when Zara went out at Final Four. We'd been at odds, but like once you're sort of outside the game, there's none of that personal element anymore. It's like I just want the best person to win, and I was really, really hopeful that Zara would make it to Final Two because I just wanted her to pitch her case. Unfortunately, that didn't go that way, and Kaylin sort of came in the rear for me there. So I loved Kaylin, and he was amazing physically, but I just didn't think he had enough moves to claim of his own to beat out those other 3.
Yeah, so I mean, getting to the final tribal council where, Kaylin is kind of lagging behind for you, was there anything that he could have done or that he needed to do that you think could have gotten the win over Miles, or were you like that far ahead with Miles at that point over Kaylin?
I think the entire jury was like, other than even Kristen. So Kristen voted for Kaylin, but I think the reasoning behind Kristen voting for Kaylin was she just didn't want him to not have any votes. Was which she told us afterwards. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what she told us. She just said felt bad and she didn't want him to go home without a vote. So, um, I sorry, hang on, my brain's just frazzled again. What's the question?
No, just what could he have done? Could he have done anything to get your vote in that final tribal council?
Yeah, look, we were sitting at Drury Villa and we were chatting about it, and we were like, it's very clear Miles is the winner to us right now, but that could change at Final Tribal. We wanted Kaylin to come out with some big secret or something that he was really holding back from everyone and just wow us. We wanted to show how he was a strategic mastermind behind all these votes. So we didn't care that he ran information back and forth and held onto things and sort of kept himself safe with the boys. We wanted him to show us, yes, I took your information. This is what I did with it. And I put it on the person I wanted it. I didn't just take it and give it to AJ and let AJ do what he wanted with it. I did what I wanted with it. That's what we needed from him. We needed him to show us that he mastermind things and he wasn't just sort of hiding behind AJ and just giving him information or hiding behind Miles and writing it out. So that's what we needed from him. And unfortunately, he just didn't deliver that in the final tribal. I think there was also, um, he struggled. I think from what I've heard, Kaylin has never watched a final tribal of Survivor. He's
No,
watched
yeah, he hasn't.
his
Yeah.
season, so I don't think he was very well equipped to understand the questions that were going to come at him and what he needed to pitch and what you need, like what a jury wants to hear. And I think he had said that he knew that I love strategy and gameplay, and he thought telling me that my move was not my move would have won him over, but it did the opposite. I was like, hang on. Hang on, don't insult the jury, babe. I was like, I love you, but don't insult the jury. You're trying to get the jury on your side. You need to show me that, yes, Logan, you put that move out there, but I was in your ear and I said this before and I told you this, which was not true, and I did this about that. So whilst you give me my flowers for what I did, you show me that how you manipulated me to do that. You don't say, Logan, that wasn't your move. Like that was not, like when he said that, it wasn't on air, but he said, yeah, Logan, I'm sorry, I know you think that was your move, but it wasn't. I did that. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't say that if I was you. That's not the way to win me over. You have to sort of say it. You kind of have to compliment sandwich it. You have to say, yes, you did amazing here, but I was a reason. But you executed it really well, and I'm appreciative of that because we worked together. Like that's what we needed. We needed him to come in and coddle the jury and make us love him the way that we always do. Like he's the most beautiful person and we adore him. So we wanted him to play that up, but then show us, but I outwitted you here and I did this and I did that. And there just wasn't enough of it. And also, Miles was so strong. Like, you cannot discount how amazing Miles was in that final tribal. It went for a very long time and they both spoke so much. And we were getting the, okay, let's just vote. Let's wrap this up and vote. But yeah, Miles he just outplayed him at final tribal. And it was really disappointing because I did really want to see how well Kaylin had did and in his mind, how he was the winner. But I think one of my questions that I put to him was what really solidified for a lot of us when I asked, what would you have done differently? You're both at final travel like tonight, but what would you have done differently? What are your mistakes in the game? What have you done wrong? Like, what would you do different? And Miles was empathetic and he was like, yes, I've done this and this and this is what I've done wrong. And Kaylin looked at us and goes, I've ran this a million times. I'm always at final tribal. There's nothing I couldn't be more proud of my game. And I was like, yes, you should be proud, but no one plays a perfect Survivor game. You have to have some humility here and you have to say, hey, actually, this is where I messed up here. I've burnt this relationship or I did this wrong. You have to be able to look back on your game and say, yeah, I messed up there. It doesn't matter that I got to final two. I still messed up there. So I think that was really a big nail in the coffin for me of not voting for Kaylin was when, yeah, he was like, no, I did everything perfect. And I was like, oh, babe. I wish you did everything perfect because you'd have my vote, but you didn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, Kaylin gave himself a hard game to pitch because it was so under the radar. and then it was next to Miles, which was really tough.
Yeah.
Having seen it back now and like the things we've discussed about his game and seeing like the other parts of it, do you think there was it with the perfect pitch? Do you think that there's something there for Kaylin to win against Miles? You know, if he can come out there and really explain the side of his game that I know a lot of people in X interviews were like, oh, I didn't realize Kaylin was doing this until I watched it on TV. Would you think there was ever enough there with like the perfect pitch on that game against Miles, or do you think Miles would still have had it over Kaylin, even with like the best possible pitch on what is, to be fair, a very difficult game to have people understand in that moment?
Yeah, look, I think if Kaylin came out with the most perfect pitch, it would have been a little bit more split. I think he probably could have won over Paulie. Um, but I don't think there was any winning over Karen, myself, or Zara, or even Laura. I think the Coven was very much on Miles's side. And it wasn't that Kaylin had burnt us through the game at all. There was no bitterness towards it, whatever, or whatsoever. It was just from a strategic point of view. Yes, he did all these things behind the scenes that no one saw, but what were they good for? I guess in the sense of like, what did it benefit Kaylin, or how can you put that to your resume without just saying I just brought information back and let someone else pull the trigger? It just I've watched this game back and I'm like, oh, you little cheeky prick. Like, you ran off with that information. I was like, how dare you? So he did do really, really great things that put him and his alliance in a good spot, but he never took the shot himself. And I think that was what was really lacking for a lot of us, that he got there with the shields. And yeah, as AJ said, he never took them down. And unfortunately for Kaylin, as much as I adore him, he was never getting my vote there. Unless he had this incredible bomb to drop. But Miles was, yeah, winning
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, that is a fatal flaw. It's a really tough thing to speak to, that you're sitting there with Miles thinking you can beat Miles is a tough one to kind of credit from a jury perspective. So in the last, what, like 8-ish months since then, we spoke about this a bit on the X interview. What's it been like coming back, decompressing from that experience and then watching it back? And we spoke about, and you posted on social media. I loved the way you were taking down the trolls. I don't think we ever spoke about it on the podcast. The way that you were calling people out and you like found one guy's OnlyFans tweets, and then you
Yeah,
found his wife, and I was like, this is brilliant. I'm obsessed with
we
this.
doxing people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and honestly, like if people are gonna hate at you for like this is to be fair, now we're telling people to hide more behind the accounts, like the fake accounts, which I don't love. But if people are gonna be stupid enough, I guess, to do it from their real accounts with
When
all of this information, I mean, I really feel like that's on them. But yeah, I mean, it's been I'm sure a lot. Like, how's that all been? For the good and the
Yeah,
bad in that time.
I mean, obviously, it's only sort of been in the public eye for what, 2 or 3 months. So that kind of decompression afterwards was crazy coming back. And I feel like I had to field that many questions. Every time I saw someone new, it was the same questions over. And I kind of got sick of talking about Survivor because there wasn't a lot that I could tell them. I mean, you have your NDAs and stuff. So I could tell them sort of my experience and how far I got. And what did I win and all that kind of stuff. And it was just the same monotonous conversation with all of my friends constantly. And I was like, I'm over this, guys. Just when we watch it, ask me questions. I'm like, we can talk about it then. But then coming into it when it's been sort of in the public now, it's been a roller coaster. Like, it is hard. I knew coming in that I have a polarizing personality, and that's okay. And I knew that being against AJ and Miles was, edit wise, I was always going to look like either the heroic villain or the heroic person that fell, or the villain in that way. So it just depended on who you backed when you're watching it. But also the edit is heavily sort of invested into the people that get to the end. So there's always the ways to make you love the people that get to the end. And not that they don't deserve love, they do. They're absolutely incredible people and they're very deserving of how far they went. But sort of putting me up against them was always going to make people dislike me, which is fine. But the hate that you receive online from it is extraordinary. Like, we're playing a game, babes. Like, relax. Like, if we're all fine with each other, you don't need to jump on board and hate on us. Like, if we're all good and we did it to each other, like, you don't need to comment on that. You can comment on our gameplay and our strategy and anything we say and do and stuff like that. But when it's personal attacks on other things, it's getting kind of ridiculous. And then it's online bullying, and it's just not what anyone stands for. So if you're going to come and bully me or troll me or whatever, I will dox you. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Sorry for swearing, but I don't care at all, because you shouldn't be doing it. And it's 2025, and grow the hell up. Like, come on, like honestly, you're watching a TV show that's edited, so just relax a little. Um, but yeah, I'll always stand up for the other cast. I think the cast is incredible, and I'm so grateful to have been allowed to play with such incredible people, even people that I didn't get to play with for a long time, or even really meet out there. Have been absolutely incredible. Like we all stayed in the Airbnb together in Sydney for the finale, and it was just like a fun little Survivor sleepover. And I love them so much, and it's been such an honor to be able to play with them and to know them. And I've created so many best friends out of this game. Like even Karen, I voted her out. I ruined her chance at $500,000, and she is one of my best friends in the world. So it's crazy how this game works, and I'm just really really grateful to have been a part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that feels like a great place to wrap up the game. Was there more about your game that you wanted to let people know?
I think a lot of it was shown pretty well. I think a lot of people have seen me as an emotional person, and I totally get that, or an emotional player. And I'll stand by the fact that I'm an emotional person. I'm a Pisces. I can't help it. It's not my fault. But I'm not an emotional player, and I think that's what I really want to get across to people is the moves that I made were never in reaction to someone doing something. It was never this person wanted me out, so they need to get out. So I was a team player, and I voted really logically a lot of the time, and I worked my social connections really well, and be proud of me for that. So I can cry and I can bitch and all that kind of stuff, and that's me as a person, but as a player, I'm not an emotional player, and get that out of your damn heads because that didn't happen.
Well, I too am an emotional Pisces who loves strategy and also crying. When's your birthday?
I'm the third of the third.
You're a
I'm a
week or
much,
so after me.
yeah,
But people really do struggle with, I think, yeah, holding those dualities. Like I definitely like I've met people who are like, you don't seem emotional at all because yes, because I well, to be fair, like I don't know how anyone can listen to a podcast with me ranting and raving and think I'm not emotional. But I think because I come in and I'm like, curious with split vote. It's like, yeah, I love a split vote. And I'm so emotional. Like I think people have like it can misread it either way where they put you into a box of like one thing or the other
yeah.
in many different dualities, not just this, but especially when you're like I don't know how the people do it on the podcast. If you're listening to hours and hours of this podcast, you should clearly tell that I love both of those things. But certainly on like TV, where people can only like take one form of a character and maybe only get. I don't think this was true of you, but like sometimes only get one form of a character where the edit's gonna like smooth the edges or kind of like broad things out a little bit. Like I think people just struggle to be like, yes, human beings are complex, like dynamic, nuanced beings, and like you can be all of these things at the same time.
Yeah, with the thing with the game is that I mean, I think a lot of the people that watch this podcast as well are more of the intense fans, or not intense fans, but the people that are really invested in the game, and so they would have more of a
Very intense. Yeah.
yeah a nuanced opinion of me where they're able to differentiate who I am as a person and who I am as a player. But when you have sort of the casual fans that are commenting this sort of nasty stuff, they're just like, "Oh, she's a bitchy, emotional person," and I'm like, "Okay, get over yourself, Karen. Like, come on, calm down." So I think what people need to remember, more so the casual viewers, is this is a human game. Like it is human people, it's human emotions. Just because we're playing a strategic game does not mean that the human elements don't come out. You're going to get pissed off, you're going to get upset, you're going to get emotional, you're going to get worked up. You're away from your family, you're starving, you're in the. Do you know how cold it is in Samoa on the beach? I didn't sleep on bamboo, I slept on the sand. It was freezing. I was wet every morning. It is not a nice time to be out there. It is fun, and I would do it again in a heartbeat, but it is not enjoyable out at camp life. It is really hard. So when you have this constant frustration around you, you're going to blow up or you're going to get upset. And the people that can sit there for 40 days and hold it all in and never complain at anybody, kudos to you, because I couldn't. It could never be me. Like I can't. I will tell people straight up what I'm feeling. I vent to people. Even when the whole blow up with AJ, we blew up at each other, and 5 minutes later we walked down on the beach and we're like, sorry about that. That was a bit much, wasn't it? And we made up literally 5 minutes later, which they don't show on camera. They don't show how close we all are, because any fight that we do have is usually made up pretty quickly, because we're like, sorry, I was a bit emotional then. I'm gentle parenting myself, where I'm like, Logan was having some big feelings and she just exploded at you, AJ. She's very sorry. She didn't mean it. She was just experiencing a lot. I hope you can forgive her. And he's like, that's fine. You don't see that side of it, but it's just a very emotional game because you are dealing with your emotions. You're dealing with when you're getting voted out or the paranoia onto you. The thing you're thinking is not that I'm going home. I've just lost my chance at $500,000. Like you're thinking that's an emotional thing. You've put investment into this game. So it's an emotional game. Let people be emotional. Just calm down, everybody.
Yeah, well, society in general, like, isn't, good on, I think, like, the extreme emotions. And I say that as someone who, like, is super emotional. I love the people in media that I see being emotional.
Mm.
Like that fire person in Elemental, what was her name? Probably like Ember or Amber or something, or like
Ember.
Wanda from Marvel, where I'm like, yeah, like I could blow things up and I could like create a universe out of my love. Like I'm very
Totally.
aware of that. And I love seeing that on TV.
Wonder makes so much sense. I get that. If my life was ruined like that, my
I love
kids,
Wanda.
I would make up a whole entire universe to like run away into my feelings too. Like valid, babes.
Yes.
Totally valid.
Literally. I genuinely relate to Wanda more than I relate to almost anyone in media because I'm like all of her flaws and like or all of her extremes, I really feel like is where I am. So I love seeing the emotion from people. As much as I'm like, do the strategic thing, do the chess move,
Yeah.
team up with people who just are this part in the hierarchy who are just blank slates to me. Like I also love what I love about Survivor is that like that's so hard to do because it is a game like fully of relationships. Like that's why Survivor is 25 years in and so interesting. And like the paradox of like work together, live together, love each other, vote each other out, vote each other to win is like the best possible paradox. It's built on extreme emotion that necessitates extreme logic and the most extreme stress. That's why Survivor is great. And then people get so upset about it. It's like, that's why the game is good.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, imagine if everyone was just like, and people actually have complained about this in like New Era Survivor. People are like, when people are like, good move. I mean, sometimes you love to see it. The variety is also what's great about Survivor. When there are casts who are like, more, and your cast is okay with each other, but like when there are casts that are more chill, people sometimes like that. But often people complain that those people are like, okay, great, you've beat me, and like on I go into the jury. Like, no, people want like the big
They want fireworks.
excitation. They want, yeah, that's TV, right? Like, why are you complaining about fireworks on television?
If everything was a boring move, the show wouldn't be running. That's the thing. Like this is what Survivor is about. It's about the emotion. It's about the human element. It's about the unpredictability of what you're going to do next. It's about self-preservation, and that's why it's such an interesting show to watch. And it's so easy to sit on the couch and say, "This was the best move here. You should have done this. You should have done that." Obviously, the clear path to the end is here because you're watching it with an objective view. But it's not. It's so subjective. The entire game is so hard. And when you're in it, you don't hear everyone else's conversation. So you can only go off what you know. And you don't know everything. Not a single person on those beaches knew everything at one stage. It is so hard to do, except for the Blade cameraman and the producers who knew a lot. So wish they gave me more info, but they didn't. But it is so hard to play when you only have a really small section of the information and you're trying your hardest to gain people's trust. And the way you do is through friendship and through alliances. And then when those are broken, it feels like your heart's crushed because that was your friendship that you put 30 days into and it's broken. Like it is so difficult. You don't have your family and friends out there. So it's like when something does happen and you do want to call someone, the people you rely on are the people that have just broken your trust. So it's really, really difficult to go out there and continue playing and continue to put a smile on your face. Like Miles did really well in the sense that he was on the bottom a lot, but in saying that, he still always had AJ and Kaylin on his side. When I was on the bottom, I didn't have anyone on my damn side. I didn't have anyone helping me other than Karen, who I eventually got out. Sorry, Karen. But then when she wasn't open with that, like if I was coming to her with, oh, I'm sad about this, or I don't know how to feel about this vote, or this is happening, she wasn't giving me anything. So I didn't even know she was on my side. So this game is so, so difficult, and you get a bird's eye view of what happens. And it's really easy to pick and choose what you think is good gameplay and what you think is really bad. But the fact is that you're not out there and you don't know how hard it is. And when you're out there with limited information, it's really difficult to navigate. And I think that's why I give so much grace to everyone. When I was like, we should have done AJ, we should have done Miles, we should have done this, this, and this, and no one was listening to me, I can't come back to them and say, oh, but don't you wish you had to listen to me now? Like hindsight, blah, 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 because we didn't get to see the whole conversations and they were going off what they felt was best for them. And that's the game. So I'm lucky to have played it. I'm so grateful for the experience. Channel 10 and Endemol Shine, you know where my number is. So just call me anytime you want. I will be there. But I would love to play again.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was the most amazing experience.
Yeah, I think it's so difficult. As like someone who comes on a podcast every day and it's like, do this. I think like the caveat, obviously, like it should like at the beginning of every podcast season, I should be like, before it's like do this, it's like have perfect reads, which to be fair, like is a skill, but like a really difficult skill. Like have so much information, know like your best bet, like make that move over like other relationship standpoints, and then like go for that. And even then, maybe it's the wrong move. You know what I mean? Like even then we will debate on even with the better information. I won't say perfect because the edit, especially this season, I think was very, very tricky to work around. But like even with that, we'll debate it. Like that's what's so interesting about it is it's kind of like I'm not gonna make a poker analogy. That feels wrong because I don't know enough about poker. But it kind of feels like you're playing poker, but you don't know your cards,
Yeah.
and you're having to guess what your card is. The first part, it's not that you're picking it up and being like, "Let me do this." And even then, I don't play enough poker to know what to do about it. But it's like you're playing a first game where it's like guess your cards, read your cards, intuit your cards. And that's a skill in of itself. And then it's like play the game on top of that. That's what makes it so, so good and so, so difficult for the players. But I think that it's, very fitting that we would bookend this podcast talking about Wanda, talking about witches,
Love
and like, being like,
reference.
being witches. Yeah, and I think that that is wonderful. I think you guys should be doing Coven merch, by the way. I think it's been a real missed opportunity that you guys aren't doing that.
Look, I'm in marketing. I can get it done. I can sort it out. I don't know. I'm not
Do it.
as far ahead with Miles as this. I think he's doing really well with his merch store at the minute, and I'm not sure that many people are on the Coven side, so we might have
Oh,
to
you're wrong.
liquidation.
You need to go the Twitter. Firstly, I want a shirt if you make it, and that can be my cut for this great idea. Secondly, people will buy the Coven merch, and like the people are on Twitter. Like, yeah, some mean people in the kind of casual fan base, but like, believe me, you have your fans, and I want a shirt. So
Oh,
please get on that. But Logan, where?
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna ask where people can find you and your possible shirts if you do it.
I am on Instagram just at Logan Johannisen, newly changed name. It is not Logan Shine anymore, guys. So sorry. And I'm on Twitter. We don't call it X, unfortunately, and on TikTok as well. So you can find me on all the socials with Logan Johannisen.
Yeah, people can go find the old Survivor tweets, possibly future shirts, past, present, future. We've got it all locked down. But Logan, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and talking through your game with me.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me, Shannon.
Thank you all as well for listening. I at Shannon Gates, globalsurvivor.com. At the point where this is out, I'm not in the country recording deep dives. However, I'm going to talk to Laura. So we're going to go, and I will also convince her on Coven merch. So that's going to come out in a couple of weeks when I'm back from my holiday. So just like stay tuned for that. That's why follow globalsurvivor.com, follow all the feeds so you don't miss any of that. If you've missed it, the Kayn deep dive, the AJ deep dive, the Miles deep dive, it's like almost 18 hours of deep dive content at this point, and we're not done. So that's what's happening, all the finale content as well. And I thought I would just leave people with all of this just even while I'm away so that no one is ever rid of me. And that was kind of my want to do that. But Logan, thank you so much again. It was great to chat to you. And thank you all for listening. Thank you to our team behind the scenes. And I will see you next time. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.